Good afternoon. I would like to call to order the August 26, 2024 meeting of the Charleston County Board of Zoning and Appeals, also known as the BZA. The board members that will hear your case tonight, to my right, Mr. Truslow, Mr. Sadal, and Mr. Neal. To my left, Mr. Nelson will be arriving soon. Mr. Jordan is here, and Ms. Switzer Smalls is en route. Staff members present tonight are Ms. Sally Brooks, Ms. Clark, Mr. Dowdy, Mr. Foster, and Ms. Working. The attorney for the county is to my right, Mr. Kelvin Hugie. Because this hearing tonight is a public fact-finding meeting, we are in compliance with the Freedom of Information Act and South Carolina Code 6-29-70. 15 days prior to the hearing, an announcement was printed in the Post and Courier. A sign was posted on or near the designated property, and a notice was mailed to the applicant or the applicant's representative, to the property owners within 300 feet of the property, and to parties of interest. Persons, organizations, and news media have also received declaration for our meeting and have also been notified. Board members, the meeting notes for July 1st, 2024, public hearing were sent to you. Are there any changes? If not, can I get a motion to approve in a second?
So moved. Second.
Very good. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Good, it carries. Thank you. Our case ruling for this and any other BZA meeting are available to the public for review and inspection during normal business hours of the Charleston County and Planning Department. The Board of Zoning Appeal is a quasi-judicial body that has final decision-making authority on the following: related administrative decisions. The BZA is authorized to hear and decide appeals only on zoning-related matters where it is alleged that there is an error in the order, requirement, decision, or determination made by the administrative official in the administration or the enforcement of any zoning-related regulations. A 2/3 vote of the quorum present is required to overturn the decision of the planning director in an appeal. We also have a special exception. A special exception is issued by the BZA authorizing a particular use in a specified location within the zoning district upon demonstrating such use complies with all the conditions and standards specified in the Zoning and Land Development Regulations, also known as ZELDAR. The BZA must find that a special exception meets all 6 of the approval criteria of the ordinance in order to grant a special exception. A simple majority is required to grant a special exception. And then finally, we have a variance. A variance is a relaxation of the BZA's regulation of the ordinance, where such an action will not be contrary to the public interest and where it is to the conditions particular to the property and not the result of the actions or situations of the applicant. A literal enforcement of the code would result in the unnecessary and undue hardship. And such a variance is consistent with Section 6-29-800 of the Code of the State of South Carolina, Title 6, Chapter 29. The BZA must find that a variance request must meet all 7 of the approval criteria of the ordinance in order to grant a variance. A simple majority is also required to grant a variance. Our purpose tonight is for interested parties to be heard in order to assist this board in gathering evidence pertinent to each case. If a member of the BZA finds a need for further information to clarify a case, the board has the authority to subpoena witnesses. It is understood that the rules of your neighborhood or subdivision are binding, and we can take no action that would neglect their jurisdiction over your property. In addition to your testimony, the board has been presented written information submitted by the staff, by the applicant, or the applicant's agent for each case. This information is now considered evidence and is entered into the permanent record of this body. It is also assumed to be complete, true, and accurate. In addition, we have been presented data for clarifying the purpose and the location of the applicant's effect on each surrounding property. The board is empowered to approve with conditions, or to deny a special exception or a variance request. We also are authorized to defer a case should there be a need for additional information. The BZA final decision will be mailed within 10 working days of the public hearing. It will be certified mail to the applicant and U.S. mail to the neighbors and the community of interest. If the applicant's request is approved, the applicant should contact the Charleston County Zoning and Appeals Planning Department to discuss the next step in the process. Variances and special exceptions granted this evening are valid for 12 months after this meeting, and a 1-year extension may be granted only if construction or development has been commenced or is being diligently pursued. However, if the applicant's request is disapproved and the applicant wishes to appeal the decision of this board concerning the case, the applicant must address the circuit court. South Carolina Code 6-29-820 states that appeal must be filed by the applicant within 30 days after the decision of this board is mailed to them. Failure to file the appeal within the time limit deprives this court of the jurisdiction to hear a case. Because this is a quasi-judicial body, everything said in this meeting must be complete, true, and accurate. All the information provided to the BZA is considered evidence. This board may certify contempt of circuit court if false statements are made either in writing or orally. So therefore, each person who wishes to provide information to this body, either in writing or orally, I ask that you stand as a group at this time, and Ms. Workin will administer the oath.
Please stand and raise your right hand. I will say the oath and you will say I do. I swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth. I do.
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you, Ms. Workin. I will now call each case by case number. Staff will present facts that are pertinent to each case, limited to 5 minutes. I will then call the applicant, and the applicant will stand, stating his name and a current address for the record before presenting testimony that's pertinent to each case, limited to 5 minutes. I would then ask for those speaking in favor or in support or in opposition, and they will also follow the same procedure for identifying themselves, and they are limited to 2 minutes. The applicant would then have a chance to apply to any opposition, limited to 2 minutes. And then the BZA will make a motion to close each case to the public. Finally, the BZA will make a motion concerning the application, stating specific facts of finding and conclusion of law. Tonight, we will hear 9 new cases. And our first case will be done by Ms. Working, and it will be case BZA-04-24-00775. And just one note, we do have monitors out in front, and we can see, so you won't catch us looking behind too often. So hopefully we can have this meeting quickly and get everything done in a timely manner. Thank you. Ms. Workin?
Okay. The applicant and the property owner, Jose Vasquez, is requesting a variance to remove a 28-inch diameter breast height DBH grand southern red oak tree and to remove an 18 by 32-inch DBH grand codominant stemmed live oak tree for a proposed 60-foot by 80-foot accessory dwelling unit, or ADU, storage building at 4683 Lazy Creek Lane, which is TMS number 21700000079 on Walnut Island in Charleston County. The subject property and all surrounding properties are located in the Agricultural Preservation AG 15 zoning district. The subject property is 23.97 acres and contains a single-family residence, a detached accessory building, and a swimming pool. The applicant is proposing to build a 60 by 80 metal accessory dwelling unit, 80 storage buildings south of the existing structures and 20.3 feet from the existing concrete drive. The 28-inch DBH Grand Southern Red Oak Tree is located in the middle of the proposed footprint. The grand live oak tree in question is a codominant stemmed DBH 1832, which is 50 total inches. It is located north of the proposed building. The following grand trees were administratively permitted to be removed because they were dead, diseased, or dying, and that was a 12 by 12 by 11 magnolia, a 24-inch water oak, and a 26-inch willow oak. So I've circled the two trees in question on the plan. This is the zoning ordinance requirements and the 300-foot radius map, the aerial photograph of the property. We did site visits for this property on May 16th, July 16th, and August 9th. This is the 28-inch southern red oak tree and the 50-inch double-stemmed live oak tree. Subject property photos, and again, the site plan, and the plat for the neighborhood. Regarding the approval criteria, staff stated that it may meet 1 and 2 and 4 and 7, and that it may not meet 3 and 6, and that it meets 5. The board may approve with conditions or deny the case based on the BZA's findings of fact unless additional information is deemed necessary to make an informed decision. In the event the board would like to approve the case, we do have some suggested conditions. Number 1, the applicant shall mitigate the removal of 78 DBH inches by either A, submitting a mitigation plan for review and approval indicating the installation of canopy trees no smaller than 2.5 inches in caliper equaling inch per inch replacement, B, by depositing funds into the Charleston County Tree Fund as described in section 926 of ZELDAR, or C, a combination of both A and B. The latter mitigation shall be in place prior to its removal. 2, tree barricades constructed of chain link fencing shall be installed around all protected trees within 40 feet of disturbance prior to any construction pursuant to section 924 of the Charleston County Zoning and Land Development Regulations Ordinance. 3, the applicant shall retain a certified arborist to monitor and treat all grand trees within 40 feet of disturbance through the duration of construction. The applicant shall provide a copy of the tree preservation plan to zoning staff for review and approval prior to zoning permit approval for construction. And that concludes the report for that.
Okay. Mr. Marchant?
No.
I'm sorry, I'm just.
Sitting in his
Mr.
chair,
Neal.
maybe.
Mr. Neal, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I got a couple quick questions for staff. I'll shoot them all out there and we can take them one at a time. First one is, do we know the grade on these trees? Do we know the use of this building, why it has to be so big? And do we have a site plan that is another option that might be for the applicant on why it needs to be
Kyle will answer the first.
4,800?
The grade question.
Thank you.
I graded the 28-inch red oak a grade A. It is a perfect example of the species. I graded the live oak a grade B.
And can you just, I have so little knowledge about trees. What's the difference between this red oak and the live oaks? And I mean, is this a normal tree? Is this a special species that we don't want to ever see taken down? Or I don't remember seeing red oaks very often.
Red oaks are pretty common around here. You usually find them in like lowland or more wet sites. But they're pretty common around here. They do get, they're one of our long-lived species.
They hollow out from the middle and
Right.
give us problems. But this is a healthy, good tree, huh?
Right. That's not a common issue with southern red oaks.
Okay. Ms. Working, do we know the use of this building, or is that for the applicant?
Well, I was going to answer the site plan question
Oh,
first.
go ahead.
So this is the site plan. It is the zoomed in area, so you can see the upper left, that's the full property because it is, like I said, close to 24 acres. So this is the plan we have, and that was provided. As far as like the use, what they put in their letter, they said for RV boat storage with a finished studio apartment for aging parents. So, but they can provide some more details on that. That's
Okay.
what was in their letter of intent.
I'm good, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Truslow.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is this property subject to a homeowners association? As I
Yes.
understand it is?
Yes.
And there's also an architectural review board?
Yes, I believe so, yes.
So wouldn't, I'm just thinking, maybe you can help me, wouldn't we be better off, or wouldn't the applicant be better off to defer or withdraw his application because he's going to have to get approval from his architectural review board? So we could in fact vote, if we voted to allow the trees to be cut, they could be cut, then the architectural review board could say, you can't build, and everybody would be hurt. Or we could say, no, you can't cut down the trees, and then he cuts down, say, 200 trees, and everybody, it'd be a loss. So wouldn't he be better in this unique situation to defer?
I think that really depends on the HOA position. I read the letter on Friday, so I didn't read it today, so I don't have a refresh on it, but I believe it kind of sounded like neutral. From what I gathered, I put it as a public comment versus in opposition or in support. But I had a feeling from the letter that they were waiting for your ruling. I don't know, though, for sure.
Well, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I read it and I thought it was very well done. It was on their letterhead, and what they said very properly is, hey, we're a homeowners association. We can't tell you what to do regarding the trees. We deal with architectural review
Right.
matters. So I thought what they said made perfectly good sense. So I'm wondering why everybody wouldn't be better served if there were deferral or withdrawal. Give them a chance to present everything to their architectural review board. Let the community weigh in, see if this is in fact the best design, or if there are any alternatives, and then come here. Otherwise, I think we might have the losses that I had mentioned.
So, Mr. Truslow, if you look at that letter that was submitted to from Long Creek Plantation
Yes, sir.
LLC, on the first paragraph,
Right.
last sentence, it says, with respect to the grand tree removal, neither review or approve such request. We defer to Charleston County.
Correct.
So, they seem like they're trying to put it in our lap rather than make a decision for
I think
themselves.
most HOAs actually require the county to provide their opinion or their permit before they'll hear the matter for the HOA and do their review. I've been in the same situation with my house on Johns Island, and I had to have county approval before I went to the HOA for my design drawings on my house. So that's not unusual.
Mr. Neal?
That's kind of how I was following up, though. I mean, I agree with Mr. Truslow. I'd rather see if the ARB comes in and says, we don't want an 80 by 60 building, and we want a 40 by 40 building, and then you don't have to lose the trees, we're wasting our time here. So I'd rather see the HOA, unless the HOA says we're adamantly opposed to this, or we have no problem with the trees being removed, but we still have problems with the structure, I'd feel more comfortable. I mean, I'll save my question for the applicant, but I'm in favor of what Mr. Truslow says, for sure.
Well, you know what? At this time, let's hear from the applicant.
Yeah.
Okay, is that fair? Do we have any other questions? I know you got a burning question, Mr. Truslow.
No, that. I wanted to make sure that they were subject to the to the HOA, and they had an architectural review board that could allow or disallow this size building or this placement. And there looked to me like there were other alternatives. I thought it'd be most prudent to have those resolved before we were in a position to cut down the trees.
And we'll find that out. We'll ask the applicant.
Okay.
How about that?
Thank you.
Thank you. Is the applicant present? Very good. Please come forward. Please come to the podium. Please state your name and address for the record, and please tell us why we should approve your application, sir.
Beautiful, thank you. Jose Vasquez, 4683 Lazy Creek Lane, Guatemala Island, 29487.
Very good. Please, sir, tell us why we should approve your application. And you've heard some of the concerns
Yes, sir, I
that
have.
we've already had.
Yes, sir, I appreciate that, thank you. I wanted to take a moment right quick. I just wanted to thank Mr. Foster for his diligence and his time coming out to our property and helping us make the best assessment and best plan for the property. I also wanted to thank Ms. Working for her diligence in helping us and supporting us getting to this point in time.
Very good.
But also, thank you so much for allowing me an opportunity to come and talk to you about this. The building is used as, it will be built and will be used for garage storage, as well as rough fitted for a guest dwelling. My in-laws are coming up in age and they have some health concerns, and we are kind of tapped to be the ones responsible. And we are trying to fast track our plans because of the need, and it's coming rather quickly. The plan for the garage was always going to be a part when we decided on this specific home in Wadmalaw. We selected it because of how heavily wooded it is. We love it. We haven't cut anything down since we've lived there, but now our needs are trumping the trees in this specific area. And based on the walkthrough that I had with Mr. Foster, based on the walkthrough I had with a private arborist, and based on a walkthrough with our builder, this is the only location that will work for this property, for this build out. As you can see from the pictures that were displayed, our entire property is woods. It's heavily wooded. The location, it won't be seen from the road. Once these trees are going to be removed, it's going to be built in that exact location or just slightly pressed towards the tree. I believe that is the 32 by 18. That's the one where I would say it's maybe 4 feet off the ground is where it actually quantifies or qualifies as that grand oak. And there is a magnolia tree that's just to the right of that oak tree where I have a branch that's growing into it, which I'm trying to preserve that magnolia, as well as that beautiful tree that's right smack dab in the middle of the property of that building. But there's no way to relocate that space because the footprint has to stay roughly that's the same. So it stays off of my property line as well as proximity to the driveway. So it creates the least land disturbance and the least tree disturbance. That is what I'm going for. I don't want to cut any more trees than I have to. The trees that I've already been permitted to remove, I've worked with Mr. Foster, and he already had given me the green light for a few trees that are already dead or compromised. And these 2 trees, we feel, to save the most trees on our property and on the left side of our property, the building, this is the path that we have to take. And I'm looking forward to working with you to come up with a plan of how we can work together to see this through.
Thank you, sir. So Mr. Truslow has a question he wants to ask.
Yes, sir, please.
I'm going to let him start.
Thank you for coming here, and you made an excellent presentation. My concerns are the ones that I stated.
Yes, sir.
Would you be better off deferring? We want to give you and the rest of the community the best opportunity we can to do what's fair and reasonable.
Yes, sir.
Why wouldn't you want to defer and let the ARB, your Architectural Review Board, decide whether or not you can build this before we make a decision that you can
Yes,
cut
sir.
down the trees?
Well, based on what the comment that Mr. Nelson had made is that I have to know from the county, which is what the HOA had stated, and in a verbal conversation I had with the HOA president, he came out to my property, I explained to him the situation, what we were doing, and he too was along the lines of the HOA guidelines and bylaws, which is we defer to Charleston County and the approval of these trees. If the building location is going to be in this exact point, in this exact place, those trees have to be removed in order for it to even happen. So he is deferring to, and the HOA board is deferring to the Charleston County, whether they approve, disapprove with conditions, what have you, is that answer is in place, and then in turn I can go to the ARB review board, et cetera, saying these are the plans and this is the approval I've received directly from the county, giving me permission to remove the trees, et cetera.
What happens if we approve your request?
Yes, sir.
You cut down the trees, then your ARB says, no, 4,800 square feet for a metal building, we just don't want to do it, and the community's upset.
Yes.
Isn't that a lose-lose?
Yes, sir, I completely understand, but with my intent is that once, if given the approval, my intent is to finalize the plan with my builder and present that to the HOA and the ARB prior to the removal of the trees.
So you would agree this would be contingent? You wouldn't cut down the trees until you got,
Once, if the approval is given, obviously the approval would be given, I can present that to my HOA board and say, I've done my due diligence, arborist with the county, private arborist, et cetera. I've been given the green light for these 2 trees to be removed, as well as the 3 that were compromised that have already been approved. I can present to them saying, this is what I would like to build, and then it would be in their hands. I would work with them to come up with the best plan and the best use case for what I'm trying to accomplish. But it's now out of your hands, which is what they're defaulting to, and it's now in their hands, and we can work together to come up with the proper building site plan.
So I got some staff that want to
Yes,
ask
sir.
a question, but I want to get my other board member, Mr. Neal, to ask you a question, then I'll go to Mr.
Yes, sir.
Downing, then I'll come back to our attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I applaud you for taking care of your parents. I deal with a 96-year-old dad, so I understand that, and I understand the urgency. But I think I'm in line with Mr. Truslow on, I don't see the harm in deferring this project and going to the HOA, because I think, at least the way I read the letter, and of course that's just my interpretation, was the HOA didn't want to chime in on the trees, but the HOA clearly wants to chime in on the size of the building and the scope of the building and the design of the building. So it seems to me that if any of that was to change, you might not need us for the site plan for this tree. So I don't see a way that I can support this tonight, and I might just be in the minority, but this is a variance request, and number 6, you have to meet all 7 rules
Yes, sir.
of the thing. Number 6 says the need for the variance is not the result of the applicant's own actions. I can't get past that one unless you can explain it. So I'm trying to understand what the downside of waiting for a deferral of 60 days, go back to your HOA and say, here's what we're going to plan to build. Here's the builder. He's going to do all this great stuff. And then if they say yes, they're okay with that 40 by 60 building or 80 by 60 or whatever it is, then come back and say, all right, the last piece of the puzzle is for us to do the trees, and then see if you get an up and down vote. That's the way I think it should be taken.
Well, according to the HOA letter that you guys have seen, is that they defer to Charleston County.
The trees. But
They
that's
defer
just my
the trees.
opinion.
They defer the trees to Charleston County. But if I were to go through the entire process of architect renderings and all of this stuff and get the HOA approval, and then I were to come back and it's denied, then it's all that work for naught.
I understand.
So what we're trying to do is we're trying to get the approval or disapproval of you all, gentlemen and ma'am, what you guys ultimately are deciding, which is, according to the HOA, the trees right now are in your hands. Then once that's decided, then it can go to the HOA. I can work with the builder, and there's nothing else that's above them that's going to keep me from actually being able to execute the build out of what we're trying to do.
Very good point. Mr. Downey?
Okay, so hopefully this is a compromise. Staff typically doesn't like to issue compromises like this, but the rules of the neighborhood are binding.
Correct.
And what this letter states is that the process for them is BZA approval first, and then approval for the HOA. However, so that's one. However, I think it would be wise of the board to add a condition that the removal of the trees not be, that you can remove the trees with a condition after the HOA has approved after the HOA has approved of the structure. But the variance for the removal of the trees contingent upon the HOA's approval would then be in compliance with the letter and the rules of the board.
Mr. Hughie?
Go ahead.
Okay. Board members, any other questions?
And-
All right, Mr. Nelson?
Mr. Vasquez, thank
Yes,
you
sir.
for your time this evening. So, hearing where my board members up here stand, one thing I would like to know, a 60 by 80 building is bigger than the house that you currently have on there. Can you provide some more justification for the size of the structure that you currently have proposed?
Yes, sir, happy to. So initially, it's going to be built out as a garage structure, but it's going to be roughed in for water, plumbing, et cetera, on the one side of the facility. I'm going to have to store an RV on behalf of my parents. So that's going to be one part of it. and then the other part is just going to be garage storage just for myself. So in theory, if you were to break it down like a third, 1/3 would roughly be the dimensions of the actual dwelling unit, and then the other 2/3, which is roughly 50 to 60 feet, is just going to be for the garage space, garage storage. Mind you, one of those spots being for like an RV storage. And I live in Charleston. I would love to have a boat, and I have that as a possible option if I were to store one there as well. But that is the reason to the size of the building.
Does your HOA have any limitations on the size of structures?
The only limitation that they have as far as the size of the structure is that if specific to the home or dwelling unit, that it cannot exceed over 1,200 square feet of conditioned heating and cooled space. My intent is to have the garage space as a garage space, and then the heating and cooling, the square footage of the dwelling would not exceed over 1,200 square feet. And based on the calculations that I had done with my builder, I believe it's right at 1,100. So we are well within the requirements of the HOA.
Okay.
And as an additional comment that will help provide clarity is I had a verbal discussion with my HOA president. He came onto site. I showed him the plan, showed him where we were planning on putting the property, based on discussions of what it was going to be used for, that it's not going to exceed 1,200, and based on his feedback is that I was not going against any HOA bylaws or regulations. It's just that 1,200 square foot could not be exceeded for the heated and cooled.
Okay. And just the tree survey that you provided was just for an area planned south. I don't know which direction is
Yes,
north
sir.
on your plans, but let's say planned south. Are there, I'm assuming you only did a tree survey on that portion of the property.
Yes, sir.
That's where you want to put it. Is it, is the rest of the property similar to this in that you have grand trees?
I don't know if Miss Working has the ability to do so, but if you were to go over to the overall, that's my property right there. It goes down in elevation to tidal basin, probably about 150 to 200 feet past, like in the rear of my property. You can kind of see a space that's like right smack dab in the middle, like slight curvature. That's all tidal basin, so it declines straight to water, and then it tapers back up. As far as the entire property is concerned, for the least amount of land, for the least land disturbance and the least tree disturbance, which is what we're desiring, that the building site in question is indeed the only location that we could actually put this.
So is it fair to say then that even if you had a smaller structure, it would be difficult to avoid all the grand trees on the
Yes,
property?
sir. If I were to go anywhere else, I'm going to run into a grand tree. This one is two, and I don't want to speak for Mr. Foster, but he's walked the property, and as far as the location in this spot, it is truly the most cleared, if you will, where it would actually go, where it makes the most sense. And those are the two trees in question that would need to be removed to preserve the greater amount of trees, which is least tree disturbance.
Okay. I'm sure we'll probably follow up with Mr. Foster after we get done with
Yes, sir.
all the testimony tonight.
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Neal,
Thank
you had a question, sir?
No, I'm good. Mr. Chair, thank you.
Mr. Truesdale?
I had one more series.
Yes, sir.
And these are friendly questions, if you will.
Yes, sir.
But as I understand, by cutting two trees, you're able to save many
Yes, sir.
more trees.
If Ms. Working could go to the site, the architectural rendering, or I guess it's the site survey. If you look to the left, of the rectangle of the proposed building site, there's a number of trees that are right there. In theory, is what I'm trying to do is if I can shift that over to where it would be more in line with the actual home, I would save literally an entire row of trees. Those are actually already cleared in that area, but I believe there's a hickory and a couple of oaks that I could cut down if I wanted to, but I don't want to. So by removing the tree in the middle, by removing the 32 with the 18, I can actually save a 12-inch magnolia on the right-hand side, as well as the row of trees that are on the left-hand side of the proposed building site.
So to wrap up, you're committed to, on this issue, you're committed to saving as many trees
I'm
as you
trying my
can
best, but
while being allowed to use your property in a reasonable manner.
yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you.
I do have a follow-up. He brought up the plan. I'm trying to understand, and maybe I missed it. I'm trying to understand where the 32 and 18, I see them over here, but it's not within
Yes, sir.
It's not within the proposed sketch.
Yes, sir, it is. So the oval square, circle, I'm sorry, that's to the right, that is a 32-inch, and I believe it quantifies as a 32-inch. I think it's like 3 or 4 feet up is a 32-inch base. Then it splits into 3 18-inch trunks. One 18-inch is growing into a magnolia. Another 18-inch trunk would be growing over the proposed build site, and another one shoots straight up the middle.
So the tree base is not in the problem. It's the branch that's just growing sideways.
It's the 3 branches that are growing out of it. Yes, sir.
Why couldn't we lose just the 18 inches, the left side of it, if it's growing into the proposed metal building?
It's so if you like, it's not in the picture, but if you looked, if there was the picture on the left-hand side, if you could actually see to the left of it, the power box for the home is right there, in addition to a magnolia. So what I'm trying to do is that if I have to cut that side and cut the other side, is the health of the tree going to remain intact? Because the building, the proposed build, if I'm able to shift it over to save the trees on the far side, the edge of the building would be right where that tree is.
So the building is really in the tree protective zone, not necessarily affected.
That is correct.
My,
Okay. The 28-inch oak tree is actually in the center of the building, but the
Right.
18 and the 32 are just in the tree protection zone.
what I'm trying to do, and part of this is that the proposed is to shift that over to the point that Mr. Truslow was trying to make, is the preservation of the trees on the left-hand side. If I'm able to shift it over and just remove that one and also the one that's smack dab in the middle, I can preserve that entire row of trees and also preserve the magnolia, the 12-inch magnolia on the right-hand side.
The site plan is not correct then. You're wanting to shift this over.
That's part of it.
So we don't have a correct site plan as part of the application.
That's part of it. So it doesn't matter if it's shifting over to the right or if it stays there, it still needs to have the approval of the county for those 2 trees. Then once I'm able to do that, I can finalize the plan with my builder, the actual site plan I can finalize. Then I can approach the HOA saying, this is the location of where I'm going to go, and then get the approval through them.
With if we don't have the correct site plan, isn't that another reason to warrant the deferral? I mean, we're sitting here moving trees around in site plans and asking us to vote on something. I just don't understand why a deferral. I mean, I know we can't direct the deferral, but I mean, the application is supposed to have the correct site plan. And
Mr. Downey's going to answer that question.
thank you.
As the permitter for all the residential properties for the BZA, whatever site plan the BZA approves would be the site plan that we would work with to issue the permit. So if this is the site plan that is approved, this is the site plan that I will have to work within, issuing the permit. So
we would have to change our motion or whatever because we can't approve this site plan. He wants us to approve something else.
It's not the site plan. Oh, am I allowed to talk? I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I'm saying it's for me, and based on my understanding, it's not the site plan, it's the trees. That's the trees are the concern. I can't.
if the footprint, and I hope I'm not speaking out of order, if the footprint of where the building is approved by this board tonight, then that is what will be the approved site plan attached to the zoning
Exactly.
permit.
That is the point I'm trying to make.
And so that is that is an issue that we've run into at the staff level. Hence why I'm the permitter now for our board. So once permits are issued, this is the site plan that we will go with because this is the site plan that this board approved.
So, just one moment.
Yeah.
So do you understand what Mr. Downey just said?
I do.
Clearly and emphatically, you understand?
I do.
So there's
understand
no
that.
more shifting with the building or anything, right?
So So I'm understanding correctly, it said if this is approved under this site plan, it would be that the building would stay in that
Yes.
exact location, plus or minus the trees. Is that
Right,
correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
You want to defer.
Are you comfortable with that?
Can I
Confer
talk to-
with your
can
wife?
Can I confer with the boss? No, I was going to talk with my builder just briefly, if that's okay.
I'll grant you 30 seconds.
Can I ask a question before he does? It might
Yes, sir.
help you.
Yes, sir.
You make a decision. Do you understand, if you requested a deferral, you could then get with your builder, get a site plan that you found was suitable, and then come back to us, and you may have yourself in a better position than you are now?
Would I have to talk and say everything I just said?
All right. No, thank you.
So the recommendation is to confer with my builder to work with the site surveyor that would locate it into the exact location we're wanting it, with still these 2 trees requested. Can I just get some feedback from
So
you
what
all
you're
with
asking
what
for,
you're-
from what I understand, Mr. Hughes, you may clarify this for me, you're asking for a deferral because you're going to want to make sure that's in the exact location. Okay? Am I correct in saying that?
I believe so. If
But you want to talk to your builder first real quick?
yes, sir. If
1 minute.
okay.
Yes, Mr. Downey. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
All right. So based on feedback from my boss, the wife, I think that we're going to have to defer because the original plan, this was the original plan, but as my wife had made me aware of, is that because we had been pushed back so many times, there actually was a new drawing done with the site location in question in the exact location. So since you don't have that in front of you, I believe that we would have to defer because you're only basing it off of what you're seeing right here.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. You may be seated.
Thank you.
Mr. Truslow.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
You have to vote on the motion to defer.
Mr. Chairman, I wanted to have the applicant be assured that we want to be as fair to you as we can, give you a chance to succeed, respect your wishes as well as the remainder of your community. So we think this, I thank you for asking for a deferral. I would make a motion at this time that we grant your request. Second.
Questions? Comments? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye to defer this case to the next applicable time that's left on county's, bless you, schedule.
Thank you.
All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Carries. Thank you. So, sir, at the next opportunity, staff will let you know when your case will come back before this board. The good thing about it is you don't have to pay another $250.
Thank you so
You
much.
could just come back, and staff will be working with you, and you should be getting information from staff very soon. Okay?
Yes, sir.
Thank
And the
you.
request would be just an updated site plan from the architect or from the survey. Is that correct?
Correct. You would need correct information to present to this board, and at that time, you would need to work with staff.
Yes, sir. Thank
Okay.
you very much. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
it. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Okay. Our next case is case BZA 0524-00784. And it will be done by Mr. Joshua Dowling.
So BZA case 0524-00784. The applicant, Caroline Edwards of Flyaway Management, on behalf of the property owner, Taylor, I'm not sure what the last name is requesting a
Carrigan.
Carriger. Gallagher, excuse me, is requesting a special exception to establish a short-term rental, extended home rental in the low-density R4 zoning district at 2104 Medway Road, TMS number 343-03-00032 on James Island in Charleston County. The subject property and all surrounding properties are located within the R4 zoning district. The property contains a single-family residence that was constructed in 1945 and a detached garage that was constructed in 2020 per Charleston County records. The applicant would like to rent 3 bedrooms in the single-family residence, has shown 6 parking spaces on their site plan. The applicant's letter of intent explains, after a comprehensive review, Flyaway Management was consulted at 21, has concluded at 2104 Medway Road has a great opportunity to be a successful short-term rental and continued contributor to its neighborhood. As host of several vacation rentals in the Charleston area, we have positioned properties like this potential one offering a high caliber guest. All right, so the definition of short-term rental in the ZLDR, that is the subject property. That is the 300-foot radius map, an aerial view, and a zoomed-out aerial view. So staff conducted site visits on July 16th and August 9th. The single-family residence and the parking. More pictures of the surrounding properties. Medway Road, Capers Street. The site plan. The tenant notice. The plat of the property of the neighborhood. So staff believes that all 3 of the criteria for this application may have been met. So the Board of Zoning Appeals may approve with conditions, or deny BZA cases 04-25-24-007-84, a special exception to establish a short-term rental, extended home rental in the low-density R4 zoning district at 2104 Medway Road, TMS number 343-03-00032 on James Island in Charleston County, based on BZA's finding of fact, unless additional information is deemed necessary to make an informed decision. The board may modify any of staff's recommended conditions below by including but not limiting to restricting the number of days that the short-term rental may be used. In the event that the board decides to approve this application, the board should consider the following recommendations by staff. Prior to the zoning permit approval, the applicant shall complete the limited site plan review process. The use shall comply with all requirements of Article 6.8. The property shall not be used for more than 144 days in aggregate during any calendar year, and the property owner shall be responsible for ensuring that the tenants comply with the Charleston County noise ordinance. Any questions?
Yes, sir, Mr. Tuzlo?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. How many parking spaces are required for this property? The reason I say in the application, they say they have a provision for 4, but then on the survey, it indicates that there's room for 6, but when you use a scale of 1 inch to 20 feet, it makes it quite a challenge to get 6 parking spaces or 6 vehicles in that space. Especially when you look at the photograph. So
All right.
if it's 4, if only 4 are required, it looks like it would work. But if 6 are required.
So they're required to have 5. So 5 is the requirement because of 3 bedrooms. So it's 2 for the structure, which is the applicable use in the ZLDR. It says 2 for the applicable use plus the required parking, 1 for every permitted bedroom. The applicable use in this case is the single-family residence. So all single-family residences that are constructed require 2 parking spaces. 1 plus every permitted bedroom is where we get the number 5. If we look at the site plan that was approved, it does look kind of tight, but after using the scale, they do meet at what is required on the parcel, and also there are 2 potential spaces inside of the garage that are not shown on the site plan.
Second question, is there I noticed the garage with 2 dormers. Is that an accessory dwelling unit or is that simply a garage?
From our understanding, it's a garage.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Good observation, sir. I like it when you come together like that. Anyone else? Is the applicant present? Yes, ma'am. Okay, so before you start, you came in a little late, and so I'm going to have to get you sworn in.
Oh, yes. I do.
Very good. So please state your name and address for the record, and please tell us why we should approve your application. And you may want to pull that mic down because we want to hear every word. There you go. But just to you, not. There you go.
There we go. Oh, I don't think I'm good.
It's not for us, but it's,
I'm good. Thank you.
it's for the recording. There you go. Amen.
My name is Erica Harrison. I represent Taylor Garrigan and the Flyway Group in this particular application. My address is 18 Carolina Street, Charleston, South Carolina. This is a special exception test for an extended home rental, and we believe we've met the criteria. And one part of that criteria is being consistent with the comprehensive plan, compatible with existing uses, and also making sure that our setbacks and fencing is appropriate. One of the questions that was alluded to by one of the board members was about parking. Granted, yes, it may look tight, but also if you look at the site plan, there's another section at the on the other side where it's a gravel parking area. So we believe we provide adequate parking as well. In terms of the requirement for making sure that it's not rented no more than 144 days in the aggregate, the applicant is well aware of that as well. And understanding the process of going through the site plan, they started this process back in late 2023, and we were set to have this hearing earlier this month, but for Hurricane Debbie, we were not able to be here. So we believe we've met all the criteria. They've gone through the process of the site review plan, showing the proposed areas for parking and ensuring that there are no issues with the neighbors. And we've only received one public comment. And that was a question about how are buffers defined, but the person was in total support of the application.
Okay. Do we have any?
I just want to clarify something. Ms. Harrison, could you just state for the record that you are an attorney?
Yes, I am an attorney.
I was going to get her on
Only
that.
because you're not listed on the application. Thank you.
Yeah. She thought she was going to slide in here, but between the two of us, she called anyway. Does any board member have a question of the applicant? Mr. Truslow?
As I understand it, if we just said that there were 4 rather than 6 spaces on the garage side, you still have 2 on the other side.
Correct, right.
And we wouldn't even need to consider whether the 2 spaces in the garage, you'd qualify with at least 6 spaces available
Yes.
regardless. Okay.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you so very much. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Do we have anybody else to speak in favor of this application? Do we have anyone else to speak in favor of this application? Do we have anyone to speak in opposition to this application? Anyone to speak in opposition? Very good. So this case is closed to the public. And at this time, we need a motion to either approve or deny this particular case. Mr.
I would make a
Truslow?
motion at this time, Mr. Chairman, that we approve the request. This is a special exception to the request to establish a short-term rental property, extended housing rental unit in a low-density residential zone district. And you as an attorney know that we know this, and we just want to make a record unless if somebody later complained, we'd have a full record and everyone would be protected. This application is governed by Zelda Ordinance Chapter 6 and 6.1, 6.1.3 in particular, as well as Table 6.1.6. This has been very well presented by staff and by the applicant's attorney. There's proper notice, there's proper jurisdiction. I would find and conclude that this meets all the requirements of Section 3.6.5 and the 3 conditions set forth in section 6.8.2C 1 through 3. You've established those both in writing and in your presentation, and again, did an excellent job. This is compatible. The provisions have been made for setbacks, buffering, in particular for parking, for trash pickup, notices, and everything else that's required. Number 3, it's in compliance with the applicable rules and regulations and standards of the ordinance, and it's in the review process. So I would move to approve the request, provided, I guess we would use the word, lawyers would say probably, or Latin scholars would say, nunc pro tunc, that you comply with the 4 conditions recommended by staff and consistent with section 3.6.5B, and that's the mouthful. But I think that covers it.
I'd love to second that motion.
Any questions, concerns?
I'm gonna have withdrawals and not have.
All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye and raise your right hand. Aye. Any opposed? Very good. It passes. Congratulations. Your case has been approved. Your application has been approved, and you'll get information from the staff within the next 10 days. Thank you. So our next case will be done again by Mr. Joshua Downing, case BZA 0524-00787.
BZA 0524-00787. The applicant Sarah McCord and the property owner Richard Huss are requesting a special exception to establish a short-term rental, extended home rental in the low-density R4 zoning district. In the low-density manufactured housing subdivision zoning district at 1644 Wading Herring Road, TMS number 331-0700-130 on James Island in Charleston County. The subject property and adjacent properties to the east, south, and west are located in the low-density manufactured housing MHS subdivision. The property to the north of the property is a retention pond. The property contains a single-family residence with 3 bedrooms that was constructed in 2018 per Charleston County records. And the request is to rent 2 bedrooms for up to 144 days. The applicant's letter of intent simply states proposing a short-term rental near Folly Beach. So again, the definition of short-term rental in the ZLDR, that is the subject property. A 300-foot radius map. An aerial view of the subject property. And a zoomed out aerial view of the subject property. Staff conducted site visits on July 16th as well as August the 9th. The single-family residence and the proposed parking. Some of the surrounding properties. Wading Herring Road. The site plan. The tenant notice. The plat. So staff does believe that all 3 of the criteria for this application may have been met. So the Board of Zoning Appeals may approve with conditions, or deny BZA case 0524-00787, a special exception to establish a short-term rental, extended home rental in the low-density manufactured housing subdivision MHS zoning district at 1644 Wading Herring Road, TMS number 331-0700-130 on James Island in Charleston County, based on the BZA's finding of fact, unless additional information is deemed necessary to make an informed decision. The board may modify any of staff's recommended conditions below, including but not limited to restricting the number of days that the short-term rental may be rented. In the event that the board decides to approve this application, the board should consider the following recommendations by staff. Number 1, prior to zoning permit approval, the applicant shall complete the short-term rental limited site plan review process. The use shall comply with all requirements of Article 6.8. The property shall not be used for more than 144 days in aggregate during any calendar year, and the property owner shall be responsible for ensuring that the tenants comply with the Charleston County noise ordinance. Any questions?
Mr. Neal.
I'm going to, the parking. Let's pull up the site plan, and we'll beat Mr. Trullo to his own game here. It looks like on my site plan on the application that only 2 spots fit within the boundaries. The third spot is close to fitting, but the fourth spot clearly doesn't fit in the boundaries. And if it's 2 bedrooms and 2 for the residential house, that's 4 parking. So I don't see how this meets the requirements. If you zoom in on the site plan, you can see that the
So
third
the-
parking spot,
The parking can go up into the edge of the easement.
edge of the street,
Easement, he said.
on his property, doesn't it?
No, so it's the edge of the easement. So if you look, it's better on this one than, because mine on the edge of the easement is here.
The fourth
that-
spot's not even in the, on
The
the
fourth
property.
parking spot technically can hang over in the buffer between the easement if it's not, if it can technically hang over. About, staff is given a window of potential to where it can kind of hang over.
The fourth spot's not hanging over, that's pretty much in the easement, right?
No, so the edge of the easement, so Waiting Herring is here, and this is the edge of the easement,
We're looking at the wrong
under
one.
yeah, the edge of the pavement,
But only 2 of them are in the property line.
on the parcel boundaries. Yes, sir.
The rule against that?
No, sir, there's not.
Happening before, but I'm still a rookie. Okay, that's fine. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Truslow, you had a question too?
No, I thought Mr. Neal's question was directed to our attorney, but I didn't know. I think his question was whether it was allowed.
The way the parking is situated?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, as long as it's not in the easement. It's not in the easement.
It's what?
Nope.
It's not within the easement.
Wait a minute, it is within the easement is what I'm looking at unless I'm,
It's in
it's in the right of way. The fourth parking spot is
Brandon, how are you counting these?
I'm counting the left one is 1, the second one is in, the third one is overhanging off the property into a little bit of the easement, but the fourth one is 75% in the easement.
Okay, are you counting each block?
Yes, sir, because that's the space for a parking lot, isn't it 18 feet by
Okay, I thought they needed 4 spaces.
some,
It's 9 by 18.
How many spaces?
9 feet across, 18 feet in the length.
So it's in the right of way, but it's not in the street.
Yeah, they have 4. They
It's
still
not in
have
the
4.
easement.
No.
There's no easement on the property.
Right, it's the right of way.
And then that was
it's in the right of way.
Used the wrong terminology.
Right.
Is this one
So-
or altogether? Is this
2 of
what
the
I'm
4
trying to
spots are encroaching in the right of way, which, just trying to understand
Okay.
why we
I was looking at it
would
wrong.
do that.
Okay, all right.
And it's because of the shape of the lot, the shot.
It is tight.
Yeah,
Like,
so this block.
it's got a narrow front end. I mean, I understand it. It's just, they're trying to cram all the cars in there, and it's going to be conjunction junction in there.
Yeah, but it's also the way this is designed.
Maybe the applicant can help solve it, but we're
can
trying to see that there's a problem.
Yeah, but if you look at what they have up here is a little bit different. I don't see that in my packet, and maybe.
I got it right here on, this
Yeah,
is on,
Look up here.
This
Yeah,
is a
that-
better
yeah, it's
indication.
the same
Not that one, though.
We're looking at the same one. Okay.
Some of them on the iPads, because mine is not
Yeah, on the iPad,
the
it's at an
clearest.
angle.
Yeah.
Yeah,
On the iPad, it's at an angle. It's at a weird angle.
yeah, because what I see and what's down here or up there is different.
Yeah.
Well, okay, see, yours is better than mine.
Can you enlarge that?
You see how mine is?
Or no?
That doesn't tell you a whole lot.
No, it just looks confusing.
This is at this weird angle.
Ours is different.
Yeah.
Okay. Is yours consistent with?
I just, any way I look at it,
Where does that one?
from my standpoint,
That
it's
looks
in
better,
it's
though.
in the right of way. But even that one right there is in the right of way.
But it's within the driveway. It's in the right of way, but it's contained within the
All
driveway.
right, so yeah, this
And
is,
it's outside of the paved road.
Right.
I mean, we just authorized something similar for the site in Riverland
At this weird
Terrace.
angle. I was counting.
That's kind of where I was going with my initial question was, is it supposed to be on the property or is it supposed to be, within a curb cut or something like that? So I'm just trying to understand what the rule is, and then I can always move forward. But this looks like with this pie-shaped lot, it's going to get more and more narrow. And if we're trying to cram 4 spots in there, it looks like 3 would fit better. If they could go down the side of the house, it'd be better too. But I just don't see how they can get 4 in there comfortably. If they have a fire there and a fire truck's going to come, where's the fire truck going to go? I mean, that's why they have right-of-ways. So, I mean.
Yeah, but that's not the driveway for a fire truck. I mean, that's not the right-of-way for a fire truck. That's the right-of-way for the driveway. So that's a different width.
I mean, ironically, the pictures that staff took show one of the cars parked in the grass in front of the steps.
Right, which is the far right one probably.
Right. And then if you look at that picture, you can actually visualize how they could get 4 cars in here and not block the street.
Yeah, I just didn't know about the easement or the right-of-way. I'm fine, Mr. Chair, on how to move forward.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you, Joshua, I appreciate it. Is the applicant present? Okay, very good. Please come forward. I think you also came in late, did you not? Okay, okay.
I believe she walked in right in front of me, and I was here for the swearing in, so I'll vouch for her.
Please state your name and address for the record, please, and tell us why we should approve your application.
My name is Sarah McCord, and I'm at 1207 Fort Lamar Road. And I believe that we have met all of the criteria, and like you said, you had the parking issue. That driveway does meet the road right there. So I lived at this property actually before, and now they want to turn it into a short-term rental. And so we have had many cars fit nicely, 4 at least. And so there is plenty of room. This property is situated between 2 already established short-term rentals. And so I don't believe it'll change anything for that street or the neighborhood. The neighborhood is near Folly Beach, which, as you know, is a popular tourist spot. And this neighborhood in particular is very family-friendly and visitor-friendly. And so I believe that we have met all the criteria. And so the parking has never been an issue, and that's what I have to say. This is my first time here, so I'm a little nervous. I apologize.
Okay.
But thank you for your time.
How long have you owned this property?
I do not own this property. I'm on behalf of the owner.
Okay. Well, how long has the owner owned it?
For quite a long time. They built the property.
They built it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Let's see if anybody has any questions for you. Anybody on my left? No? On my right? Oh, wow. Well, I guess we worked out all our questions among ourselves then, and didn't need anything else of you. Mr. Siddell? No? No. Okay. Well, thank you so very much for your testimony today. It's good.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. Well, let me, okay, we'll get that way. Do we have anyone else to speak in support of this application? Do we have anyone else to speak in support of this application? Do we have anyone to speak in opposition? Anyone to speak in opposition? Very good. This case is closed to the public. And Mr. Siddell?
Thank you. In the matter of BCA case 0524000787, I move that we approve this application for short-term rental. I feel that it meets all 3 conditions, that it's compatible with existing uses in the vicinity and not adversely affect the general welfare or character of the immediate vicinity. It's located between 2 short-term rentals, and so it's consistent with the nature of the neighborhood. Number 2, there's adequate provision is being made to protect the adjacent properties. There's trees and fence that offer buffering between this property and the adjacent property, so it meets that criteria. And number 3, it complies with all applicable rules, regulations, laws, and standards of the ordinance. In making this motion, it includes that the applicant meet the 4 conditions that have been outlined by staff.
Very good. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, sir. Any questions of staff? Any comments? Very good. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. I'm sorry?
Just wanted to confirm, Mr. Truesdale, you seconded it, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No, quite. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Opposed?
All right, there's one opposed, it still carries. Very good. Your application has been approved. Within 10 days, you'll be getting information from staff letting you know the next steps in the process. Thank you so very much, and you have a great day. Our next case will be case BZA 06-24-00791, and Ms. Working will be administering that application. I'm missing Ms. Brooks here today.
Yeah. The applicant Zachary English and the property owner Eugene E. Forney are requesting a variance to reduce the required 50-foot front street side setback by 23 feet to 27 feet at the closest point, and to reduce the required 15-foot interior side setback by 10.5 feet to 4.5 feet at the closest point for an unpermitted detached accessory building at 6084 Overlook Road, which is TMS number 253000036 on Johns Island in Charleston County. The subject property and surrounding properties are located in the agricultural residential AGR zoning district. The applicant constructed a 447 square foot, 21 by 21 detached accessory building without applying for zoning and building permits on the 0.45 acre subject property. There's an existing single-family residence that was constructed in 1964 per Charleston County records. The applicant's letter of intent explains in quote, 20 by 20 aluminum driveway carport. The building is temporary, not a permanent carport. This is the zoning ordinance requirements for this property. The 300-foot radius map, aerial. We visited this property on July 16th and August 9th. Here's some photographs of the property with the building. You can see in the front. And Overlook Road. And the plat. Regarding the approval criteria, we stated that it may meet 1, 2, and 7. It may not meet 3 and 4, and it does not meet 6. It meets 5. Sorry, I kind of went out of order. It may meet 1, 2, 7, may not meet 3 and 4. It meets 5 and does not meet 6.
Okay.
That's better. The board may approve the conditions, or deny the requests based on the BZA's findings of fact, unless additional information is deemed necessary to make a decision. The staff recommends the following conditions. If you choose to approve the application, the applicant property owner shall obtain all required zoning and building permits for the unpermitted structure. If the required zoning and building permits are not obtained within 90 days of the variance approval, the accessory structure shall be removed. 3, the detached accessory building shall be used for personal uses only. It shall not be used as an unpermitted business. Any questions?
Yes, I got one, and I'll.
No problem.
Is there concrete under this structure, or is it just dirt?
I am pretty
It's hard-
sure, but I didn't go out there. Josh, do you remember if there was?
I don't remember seeing anything concrete under it, but that would be a better question for the applicant.
Okay. Mr. Neal?
I was just trying to figure out, how did we get here? What, did they not get a building permit? Did somebody turn them in? Why are we
Yeah,
here?
this is one of our code cases. It's going through court and code enforcement.
So they are at a full stop right now,
Yes.
nowhere else. And you said something about zoning. This meets zoning requirements. It's okay to have this on there because it's just a personal use building type thing?
Yes, as long as it's not used for any unpermitted business.
Location is a setback problem.
Right, correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Anyone else? Very good. Thank you, Ms. Working. Is the applicant present? Yes, sir. Please come to the podium. Please state your name and address for the record, and please tell us why we should approve your application, sir.
My name is Zachary English. I'm at
Pick up the mic for me, Mr. English. Thank you, sir.
sorry. Zachary English. My address is 6084 Overlook Drive, Johns Island 29455.
Please tell us why we should approve your application, sir.
As I listed on my application, I leased the property, and it's a temporary carport. Almost every other house in the neighborhood has a carport out in front. The houses that are in this neighborhood were built in like the 60s, so there's no garages, like actually in the house. There's no other structures on the property, and I use the building to store my personal, like, lawnmower, bikes, tools, you know, garage stuff. In regards to the note on there where it's about a business, I do own a business, but I don't use it like it's for a business. Again, it's just for my personal property because there's nowhere else to store anything on the property. That's basically it.
Okay. So, question, you installed this building, correct?
Yes.
And you were leasing this building, leasing the house, correct?
Yes.
Okay, how long have you been there, sir?
I've been there for about 9 months.
9 months, okay. Is there concrete footing there under this?
There is.
There. Was it there before, or did you pour it?
There was a small portion of, like a porch kind of concrete or whatever there. And with permission from a property owner, we did like a 3-inch like extension, like the driveway, basically, and then put the carport on top of it, basically.
Okay. You did it yourself, or you had a company come and do it?
Some contractors.
Okay.
And it is temporary. Whenever I leave the property, I'll be removing the building. So.
Okay. Well, Mr. Neal has a question for you.
Okay.
I just have a real easy one. Is this like a storage shed, or is this a car thing where you're driving into it like a driveway, or is this?
I use it as a storage shed.
Yeah, so you're not parking cars under it. You're
No.
putting lawnmowers and tools.
Correct.
You're trying to protect everything from the elements and
Correct.
from stuff walking away, growing legs.
Correct.
So it's not a drive-in thing. That's why it's
And you can see my gator right there. It's like
right.
I put my four-wheeler in there.
How close to completion is this when you got stopped?
It's completed. There's really nothing to it. It's just a gabled metal, like you see them everywhere. You know what I mean? It's
Right.
just an aluminum Versatube thing. I ordered it online. You know.
Did you lose any trees when you
No.
put it up? I'm fine, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions on my right? On my left? Yes, sir.
But is there a particular reason why you didn't put it behind the house?
There's nowhere to put it behind the house. The house is, the property is very sloped, and there's no access to get behind the house. It's as you can see there, there's a fence that goes all the way around the property, and there's really nowhere to put anything on the property. It's a very small property, and the way that it is shaped, there's nowhere to put anything, really.
Okay. Thank you.
I got a follow-up question. When does your lease end?
It ends in, let me see, August 28th of next year. I just renewed it.
Are you going to stay there a while?
I'm expecting to, until the end of my lease. I don't have any intentions to move before my lease ends.
Okay, good. Any other questions on my left or right?
I do have a follow-up, if I may, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir,
So,
please.
We don't have a site plan on this, and Mr. Nelson's question was very intriguing. I'm trying to understand, what, I'm looking at, well, there it is, the site plan. I didn't see that in my part. So you can see this from the road because I was just trying to see if there's tree foliage or just anything, what the streetscape's looking like. Are there, well, I'll follow up with staff then. I'll follow up with staff on my questions for buffers and plantings or anything like that, but that might be some consideration we might want to look at. Thank you.
Okay, we got one more question.
One more question, if I may, and thank you for coming. I'm looking at the photograph, an aerial, and it appears to show in the back of the house, between the house and the marsh or the river, what appears to be a shed of some type. Do you, what is that?
Which part are you referring to?
Where you see the subject property, I can point up
Yeah,
here.
your laser.
If it'll make it easier for you. I was looking at what's right here. If you tell me there's no structure out there, I'll accept that, but I'm, on the aerial photograph I have, it has what appears to be some type of a building or a structure.
It does have like a little, I think it's like a 5x8 wooden, like, storage shed thing that's falling apart. Like, there's not even anything in it. Like, it's rotten now. Which is why, like, when I moved in, I had to order that thing to be able to store my exterior stuff. You know, I've got expensive lawnmowers and tools, you know, just like anybody else would in their garage.
The reason I was asking, Mr. Neal had asked, I think it was Mr. Neal had asked if there was any other place on the property where you could put your shed or your storage facility, and you said no. I guess it would necessitate this being removed, that you said it's falling apart?
Yeah, I mean, it's not usable. And it's very small. I mean, it's like what you'd put hand tools in, basically. Small.
Thank you.
One last question for you. Could you reassemble this and disassemble and reassemble this?
Yes.
Okay.
It all screws together. Like, it could be, me and my buddy put it together in a couple days.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like, it's modular.
Okay. Anybody else have a question on that side? Thank you so very much for your testimony, sir.
Absolutely.
Do we have anyone else to speak in favor of this application? Do we have anyone else to speak in favor of this application? Do we have anyone to speak in opposition? Anyone to speak in opposition? Very good, thank you. This application is closed to the public. Board members, do we have any other additional questions for staff? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I'm kind of stuck on this one because number 6 is by the result of his own applicant's actions. And I mean, the applicant obviously didn't build this and tried to break the rules. I mean, it came apart, and it's a code enforcement issue, and so we want to help them. But to grant a variance that we know is against that criteria, it's hard to grant. The applicant has stated that he can move it relatively easily. I'd be open to some type of screening if we could, but the staff doesn't have any requirements on screening with it being in the front, do they? I mean, it's really the front yard, rural area, really doesn't matter. So I won't support a motion because it is what it is. We could tear it and move it down somewhere else. I hate to see that happen, but I don't see any other way, but I'm just one vote, so that's where I kind of stand.
Okay, any other comments? Yes, sir. Mr. Nelson?
It's a question for staff, but have you guys received any negative feedback from the adjacent property owners or from the owner?
I've got a couple calls, but
There was one letter in your
there
pocket.
was one letter, yeah.
Yeah, there was a letter in the package, but that individual doesn't even live anywhere near the.
Yeah, but I've gotten a couple of calls.
Okay.
We told him put in, opposition, but no documentation. But yes, I did receive a couple calls.
Based upon your site visit, is there room in the back for the shed?
I didn't go in the back, but my estimation from the site plan would be that there would be room in the back.
This might be a question for the applicant, but since there is a unit accessory dwelling back there, have you not worked with the property owner to tear down the older building and put your particular building in the back, since it sounds like it's easy to move it? It does look unsightly in the front, and it's unpermitted.
Yeah.
We moved past that already. You can have a seat.
Oh.
Any other questions?
Comments?
Comments?
I don't question at all the good faith of the applicant and especially in trying to protect his property.
and I'd like to accommodate him, but I'm having difficulty understanding how, in face of the clear laws that we have in place, that we can just ignore them. So I would like to see if there was some other way to accommodate him, but if we're going to apply the law, which we're required to do, I don't see how we can approve this.
I mean, Mr. Truesdale, our only other option would be to consider it from the standpoint if the applicant would have come to us before he actually built the structure. Would we have allowed it to go in the front? It's got to meet the exact same criteria, whether he does it before the fact or after the fact. You'd probably be surprised to hear me say it, but I'm not sure that we have enough information to know whether or not it could go in the back or not.
Right.
So it's a tough one.
All right, let's call for the question. Do we have a motion to either approve or deny this particular application? Anyone?
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
Regrettably, I would move that we deny the request.
Okay.
I would make, there's jurisdiction is proper, notice is proper, the matter's been thoroughly presented by staff, and I appreciate the comments made by the applicant, but when I consider the clear approval criteria, and we just have, we don't get to, in golf, they might say you have to play them as they lie. We can't just avoid the law. The law says what it says. Approval. I'm sorry. I didn't have my microphone on. Approval criteria. This does not meet approval criteria 3.10.6, 3, and 6. And I just don't see any way to get around it. So I would regrettably make this motion that we deny the request. Perhaps he can put the facility somewhere else, but that's not for us to say at this time.
Second.
Can you give specific, you just said 3 and 6, but you didn't say why it didn't meet 3 or 6.
Yes.
Thank you.
If I can just go to the criteria, under criteria 3.10.6, subsection 3 indicates that because of these conditions, the application of the ordinance to the particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property. There hasn't been a sufficient presentation of facts that would indicate that the property cannot be used. Under number 6, which is more compelling, the need for the variance is not the result of the applicant's own actions. Again, I don't question good faith at all, but the law says what it says. The need for the variance is not a result of the applicant's own actions. He was the one that built it here, and I would have to say that I don't mean to make light of it, but ignorance of the law would be no excuse. So that's my motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, Mr. Neal, second. Okay. Any discussion or question? All those in favor to deny case BZA 06240079, please raise your hand, indicating by saying aye. Aye. Oh, it's unanimous. Unfortunately, sir, your application was not approved, and you'll be getting information from staff in the next 10 days letting you know why. Okay? Thank you, and we're sorry that your application was not approved. Okay. Our next application, let's see. We're going to take a break after this one, okay? Just a quick one. Our next case is BZA 06-24-000792, and Ms. Working will be administering this application.
The applicants and property owners, Joseph Todd Manley and Meredith Hastings Manley, are requesting a variance to reduce the required 50-foot OCRM Office of Ocean and Coastal Resource Management critical line setback by 22.4 feet to 27.6 feet, and the required 35-foot OCRM critical line buffer by 7.4 feet to 27.6 feet for an unpermitted swimming pool at 7753 Blue House Lane, and that's TMS number 06900000013 on Edisto Island in Charleston County. The subject property and adjacent properties are located in the Agricultural Preservation, AG-10 zoning district. The 3.11 acre subject property, 2.55 acres of Highland, contains a single-family residence constructed in 2003 per Charleston County records. However, permitting for the residence began in 1999. The Islands at Blue House Plantation subdivision was platted in 1985. Charleston County adopted required setbacks and buffers from the OCRM critical line in 2001. The applicant's letter of intent explains, and quote, I am requesting a variance to have an accessory in the critical line area pool. The pool was constructed in 2021. I believed it had been permitted by the pool company I hired. It had not been. The site plan shows the pool to be approximately 30 feet away from the critical line. Parts of the house and stairwell constructed in 2003 are also within the 50-foot setback. This is the zoning ordinance requirements for this case, the radius map, aerial. We visited the property on July 16th and August 9th. As you can see, some pictures of the pool and the pavement around the pool. And Blue House Lane. This is the survey, and this is the site plan that shows the pool and the plat. Staff stated that the request may meet 1, 4, and 7, may not meet 2 and 3, meets 5, and does not meet 6. The board may approve of conditions, or deny the request based on the BZA's findings of fact, unless additional information is deemed necessary to make an informed decision. In the event the board chooses to approve the application, we have a couple of suggested conditions. 1, the applicant shall use stormwater mitigation measures such as the use of rain barrels or rain gardens to reduce the flow of stormwater into the marsh. 2, the applicant shall provide an as-built survey of the existing house, swimming pool, deck, patio, vehicular parking layout, and the 35-foot OCRM buffer vegetation and OCRM critical line within 40 feet of the house and pool. 3, the applicant shall provide a planting plan showing the reestablishment of the 35-foot OCRM critical line buffer with native vegetation within the as-built survey area for review and approval by zoning and planning staff. The applicant shall install landscaping based on the approved landscape plan within 6 months of BZA approval. 4, the applicant property owner shall obtain all required zoning and building permits for the swimming pool within 6 months of this variance approval. Have any questions?
Yes, Mr. Neal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm interested in the timeline. Do we know when the pool and steps and all were built? And part of that equation is, did the OCRM setbacks and buffer rules change in the last couple of years that might have affected the timeline of this? If they were under the old rules, would they have fit?
No, not for the pool. The pool was constructed in 2021.
The pool was in 2021.
Right.
All right,
They got their permit to build their house in 99, so it seems like the reason part of their house is encroaching is because they pulled their permit before the rules changed in 2003.
And what were those old rules, just to remind?
They're just there was a rear setback, but not a OCRM.
Okay, so it wouldn't fit either way. The pool and the stairwell are.
Probably not. Yeah. Because if I think.
But the pool's 2021.
It's pushed pretty far back.
Right.
Into like that area.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much.
Good question, sir. Yes, sir.
I was curious, how was this discovered? Was it a self-reporting where the homeowner or applicant found that they were in violation and came forward and said, hey, we're sorry?
It's another violation case. It was what? Our code enforcement staff are dealing, yeah.
Okay.
I don't get into the nitty gritty with them about how it happened. Just trying to get people here to get it resolved, possibly.
Any questions on my left of staff? Yes, sir.
One of the pictures shows a bunch of, I think, what appear to be cedar trees. Is that along the side of the house? And are there live oaks along the front of the house?
Do you know, Josh? He's asking about the trees.
We'll give you a chance just in a moment. Thank you.
I don't see cedar. I don't know. Those look like.
I'm not really worried about the type of trees that are there, but I was just wondering if the photo that was taken was of the side of the house or the front of the house.
This is the front of the house here.
Actually,
we can ask the
that view to the left is the back side of the house.
Oh, okay, sorry.
So the porch actually faces the OCRM critical line.
Right. So the picture on the right, though.
Yeah, so the picture on the right, let me see if I can pull it up on my iPad too, because I can't really tell from up there.
And we can check with the applicant too if we don't know off the top of our heads.
Yeah, and ever since we've been having 10 cases a month, I have not had any time to go in the field, so.
Okay, so
I
that
have
is
not visited this property.
That is the front
Sorry.
of the house. The picture to the right is actually the front of the house. The porch side is the rear of the house.
Okay.
I had one more question.
Yes, please.
Positive, but I see there's a pool, in the photographs, it looks like it's got rather than fencing, it's got a retractable cover. I assume if it's got a retractable cover, there was electricity that goes to the pool so that the motor can operate. Is there a requirement to have pull an any kind of electrical permit when you build a pool?
Yeah, if it is electrical, then yes.
Did you find where there was ever an electrical permit pulled in this
Can we
case?
look at that?
That would be outside of our scope. Zoning looks at the property itself. Building services looks at the safety of the structures. So because there's not a zoning permit for the pool, I would yield probably that there's not an electrical permit for the accessory to the pool, because if that were the case, then building services would have triggered us a long time ago, say, hey, they don't have a zoning permit. So,
And normally building services requires a fence with a gate lock. So I don't know if this retractable thing is in lieu of a fence, if that's allowed or not. I don't know the answer to that. That's, again, like Josh said, the building department.
Well, like I said, I don't think that's dispositive of this, but I was just curious whether there was any permit. If there was, if it didn't comply, they probably didn't get a permit, but that's a moot issue, I suppose. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any more questions on my left? No? Now we can have you. Will the applicant please come forward? Please state your name and address for the record, and please tell us why we should approve your application.
Right, Meredith Manley. The address is 7753 Blue House Lane, Edisto Island. We didn't build the house. We bought it in 2019. It had been built in 2003. The house and the property had been on the market for a long time. We don't know why. And then after we bought it, we realized that there was probably a stormwater issue with the runoff from the roof collecting in the place that we have a pool now. It was actually my idea to try to do something about it. We didn't want a retention pond. There were mosquitoes everywhere. When there's standing water, just mosquitoes everywhere. We have a family, and anyway, did not want to have a mosquito issue again. And I said, why don't we consider putting in basically the smallest pool you can build? We hired a pool guy. It was during COVID. We thought he was getting the permits. I guess he thought we were getting them. I don't know. It was a lot of disconnect during COVID. Anyway, it's a rural area out in Edisto. It's over 3 acres, and it's zoned AG10. It's all farmland. We don't even have neighbors on either side of us. There are 15 lots back behind a gate, and not all of them have houses on them. You'll see letters in the application where the 3 of our neighbors all spoke in support of our pool. One is the vice president of our POA, Property Owners Association, none in opposition who are in our neighborhood. Again, we thought we were doing something responsible. Our pool is actually the same distance to the critical line as the house is. And so we looked at where the house is and where the picture that they showed is the only way to get in the house. So when you come in the driveway, you're actually looking at the back of the house and you circle around and that's how you enter is, it's kind of the back of the house, but it looks at the marsh, and that's the only way to get in. Anyway, the pool is the same distance to the marsh as the house is, and that was built in 2003. The pool has no adverse impact on the neighborhood. As I said, these are large rural lots out in AG10. They're literally tractors that you have to pass by to get even to the property with a full farm that's there. Ron Hoover is the owner of the plantation there. So anyway, the rainwater that was running off for several years, maybe that's why the house was on the market for a long time, we don't know, but there's not a comprehensive drainage plan. All there is a berm that runs the entire neighborhood that protects the ecosystem of the marsh, but it also, when there's rainwater runoff from houses, there's nowhere for it to go. We don't have a comprehensive drainage system. We're out in the country. You hardly get cell phone reception out there. And so really, it's kind of each house has to fend for itself. I wish that we did have a comprehensive drainage system like a neighborhood would, but it's just rural. So anyway, with there being the berm and this rainwater that was collecting, I wanted to put in essentially a plunge pool. It's 13 by 25, I think, and we thought we were doing something responsible. We installed a rainwater harvesting system in it to be able, it actually runs off from the roof to the pavement and directly into the pool. So anyway, there's a natural slope from the land, which was probably why it was starting to accumulate. In any event, the rainwater runs off into the pool and then it filters into clean water from there. We thought we were covered as far as the contractor getting the permits. He's been real hard to get in touch with, and we're asking for approval of variance so that it's built so that we can continue using it, so the rainwater continues to have a place to go, and none of our neighbors are adversely affected by it, and we don't believe the ecosystem is either due to the berm.
Okay. Do we have anyone to have a question for us? Mr. Neal?
Part of the recommendations from staff are that you would put some plantings in along the new setback lines. You're fine with doing all that in the timeline that staff has proposed?
Sure, whatever's recommended saves us the money of hiring somebody to tell us what to put in, so, yeah.
Anyone else? Yes, sir.
First, thank you for coming here and thank you for your presentation. We have in many of these cases, we have homeowners say the contractor was supposed to do it. Often the contractor says the homeowner is responsible for getting all the permits. I know you're an attorney, well-respected, and you have have an excellent background, as does your husband. My questions, first of all, is where's the contract? I'd like to see the contract to see who was responsible for getting the permits. Do you have the contract?
I don't have it. My husband was doing all of that, and we have been like ships passing in the night, which is why I'm here and he's not. But I can get a copy of the contract.
Okay. And to follow up on that, I could understand somebody being very upset if the contractor was required to get the permits and he didn't. So I'm assuming that you have correspondence, you've written to him, certified letters, and that sort of thing. Do you have those to share with us?
I went back through my emails today before this meeting, and I found at least one where I was forwarding the correspondence to him. In fact, I was at the house when the Charleston County truck pulled up, and I thought it was just something related to, we've had a lawsuit in our neighborhood about short-term rentals. There are three houses out of the 15 have been illegally doing short-term rentals for years, and anyway, we're the defendants in the lawsuit. And so I thought it was related to that. And it turns out it wasn't. It was a code enforcement officer. He didn't issue a stop work. The pool was still under construction. So anyway, I reached out to the pool contractor at that time, and I'd have to look back and see what we have that's in writing, but I know I called him immediately.
You don't have any, do you have anything to share with us today?
No, I didn't bring anything today.
Okay. Another thought was, I could be wrong, but I would think when you do something of this magnitude, it would, you'd have a permit outside of your house that would indicate that the work was being done. Was there any such permit that was out there?
I remember some things, but you know how a construction site is, especially when there's a lot of dirt. I remember that there were some things like that were in the clear plastic bags, but I mean, I don't recall specifically.
Okay. You indicated that the homeowners association had said that they'd approved of this?
Yes.
But when I looked at the restrictive covenants, and it indicated that to make you had to make a written request, otherwise there was to be no excavation and that sort of thing. Do you have anything in writing where you requested of the homeowners association relief? And do you have anything in writing from them where they said they approved?
This letter I brought with me, it should be part of the file, from Judith Heron. She is the vice president of our POA. And I've only got one copy, but here it is.
No, I read that. What I was looking for was the backup documentation that would, I noticed it wasn't on the homeowners association letterhead. It was on her personal letterhead. So I was looking for the documentation where you had requested the relief from the homeowner. And it's not dispositive, but you had requested it and they had granted you this relief. Do you have anything like that?
So our POA, the bylaws and the covenants and restrictions do not require do not require an approval to build a pool. We looked through them extensively and talked with the then president, B. Moore, before we did anything. And he said, you're correct, you don't have to get a permission from the POA, but if you would send a courtesy email to everyone in the neighborhood to let them know what you're planning to do, then that should be sufficient. And we went back through the covenants, and he was right. We didn't have to get permission, but we did send a courtesy email to everybody in the neighborhood before any ground was broken. I can bring this to you, but I don't have it today.
You don't have those today?
No.
I want to be as fair to you, all of us want to be as fair to you as we can, and also adhere to the law in our capacity. If you were to request a deferral so you could get your pool contract, your documentation regarding your contract and your communication with your builder, your covenants, especially covenant number 36, as I think is the applicable one, and the documentation that has been referred to from the homeowners association, would you think that might be a good thing, or would you request that, or do you want us to have a thumbs up or thumbs down today?
I'm happy to provide whatever you believe you need. So if that means deferring it, then that's fine with me. I can easily pull emails. As far as communication with the builder, I believe most of it was text messages, which have been deleted, but I can look back and see what I have. If you don't think you have enough information to make a decision today.
It's your call. I mean this respectfully. It's your call whether you would want to do that, or whether you would ask for us to vote today. I'd like to give you, only for myself, I'd like to give you a chance to present as much as you could that might help us help you.
Sure. Yeah, under these circumstances, I think it sounds like you need more information to make an informed decision, and I can gather those things and come back.
I don't know what you all think.
Mr. Chair, can I just add one more comment to what she's contemplating on the deferral that might help if we were to bring stuff? I think what Mr. Kudlow is asking for, and I agree with him on this, is one of the variance requirements criteria is number 6. And number 6 clearly says the need for the variance is not the result of the applicant's own actions. I understand where we are, and personally, I don't want to see you have to dig up a pool, because that's not where we are. But if we can see that you were under the understanding that the pool contractor was getting the stuff, and the contract said the pool contractor was going to get the permits, and there was conversations back and forth that you were trying to do everything right, and shows us that you were trying to do everything right. That would give you a lot more ammunition to show that this was not your actions, it was really the contractor's actions and other people's actions. So I think that would really help build this case and help us understand that criteria was met in the spirit. If not, it looks like you just give us our approval. We didn't mean to do it, but just here it is. So we don't have anything else. That's why I believe he's being so detailed in his request. I know it's cumbersome, but a deferral of 60 days to a pool that's already there doesn't really hinder anything, I don't think.
No, I understand, and I want there to be enough information. I should have brought more with me today, so I apologize.
No, that's fine. No apology. So that's just where I would be if I was voting right now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I want to make sure, just for the record, you are a practicing attorney?
Yes.
You and your husband? Okay.
Yes.
And would you state the name of the law firm that you practice?
We both have our own law firms. Mine is Hastings Law Firm, and his is Manley and Halverstadt.
Thank you. Okay. Any other board member have any questions? So just to be crystal clear, you are requesting a deferral?
Yes, I am requesting a deferral to gather all documents that we discussed today.
Very good. Of course, we need, Mr. Truslow, you're going to make a...
I would make a motion that we approve the request for a deferral so that the information that we've requested can be provided, and anything else that might help us.
Sure.
Help you.
I'll second that.
Very good. Any other questions, concerns, comments from the staff? Very good. All those in favor to defer this case to the next available time that staff can see fit, please raise your hand and say aye. 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 It is unanimous. So your deferral has been approved, and please work with staff to let you know the next time that you can be placed in on the schedule, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you for your time today. At this time, we're almost at a 2-hour mark. We're going to take a very brief 10-minute recess, and let's try to reconvene at 6:32. Thank you. I'm going to say, you should. Are we ready? Okay, at this time, we'll go ahead and get started again. Our next case that we have is case BZA 06-24 at 00793. And Ms. Working will be administering that application.
Okay. The applicant Ross Appel Esquire of McCullough, Khan and Appel, and the property owners Ronald G.W. Teed and Margaret G. Redmond are requesting a variance to reduce the required 35-foot OCRM Office of Ocean and Coastal Resource Management critical line setback by 15 feet to 15 feet for a proposed swimming pool at 1319 River Road, which is TMS number 311-0000116 on Johns Island in Charleston County. The subject property and adjacent properties to the north and east are located in the low-density residential R4 zoning district. The adjacent properties to the south and west are located in the city of Charleston's jurisdiction. The 0.58 acre Highland subject property contains a single-family residence constructed in 2005 per Charleston County records. The lot track A was created in 2002. Charleston County adopted required setbacks and buffers from the OCRM line in 2001. This is the Zeldar requirements for this property, the radius map, aerial. And we visited this property on July 16th and August 9th. Here's some photos of the subject property. And the survey, and then the site plan, full plan, and plat. So regarding the approval criteria, we stated that it may meet 1, 2, 4, and 7, that it meets 5, and that it may not meet 3 and 6. The board may approve conditions, or deny the request based on the findings of fact, or if you want additional information. In the event the board decides to approve the application, we do have a couple conditions to consider. 1, prior to commencing construction, silt fencing shall be installed along the critical line. The silt fencing shall be maintained for the duration of construction. 2, the applicant shall use stormwater mitigation measures such as the use of rain barrels or rain gardens to reduce the flow of stormwater into the marsh. 3, the encroachment areas shall be limited to the footprint areas shown on the submitted site plan. The applicant shall provide a landscape plan using native plants within the required 15-foot OCRM critical line buffer for review and approval by zoning and planning staff. The buffer shall be maintained pursuant to Zeldar Article 4.24, Section 4247.
Okay, I'm sorry, I was going through things. Mr. Neal, you have a question?
Yeah, just trying to understand the application here. In my notes, it says the variance request to reduce the required 35-foot OCR critical line setback, reduce it by 15 feet to 15 feet, and that's only 15 and 15 is 30, and the line is 35. So are we reducing it by 20, or reducing it by 15, or reducing it to 20? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I know. I understand what you're saying. Yeah, we're reducing it to 15, so I think that should have been 20.
Okay, so
Right?
we're reducing it by 20 down to 15 because that one corner hits the corner of it. That's the only one it really hits, right? Okay. All right, that's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And good catch.
Good math.
Anyone else? On my left or right? Very good. Mr. Appel. Councilman.
All right, well,
Let me be corrected here. Thank you. Yeah.
Man, you're making it sound pretty bad. Good evening, Chairman and members of the Board of Zoning Appeals. My name's Ross Appel. I'm here today on behalf of Dr. Ronald Teed and his wife, Meg, and they've also got their 7-year-old son, Archer, here today to watch the proceedings. And I want to make something very clear to the board right from the get-go. There is no pool currently in the ground at my client's house. This is not an after-the-fact request.
Nice.
We are trying to do things the right way to come see the Board of Zoning Appeals for the necessary relief before the pool goes into the ground. My client is a pediatric ophthalmologist. He is somebody who's a family man that wants to provide a safe, amenity for his family and his son and their friends at their house. They purchased the home in June of 2017, and when the home was purchased, the current configuration of the lot was set. In other words, they did not locate the home in its current configuration. This is a small pool. It's a 23-foot by 32-foot swimming pool, and it was designed specifically to minimize the scope of the variance that we would be needing from you all today. So Charleston County actually has OCRM buffer rules and setback rules. So we're not here today seeking any relief from the 15-foot buffer requirement. That is going to be completely preserved. But we are seeking a setback variance with respect to the OCRM critical line setback. And so to briefly go through the 7 criteria, I've got a letter in the record that goes through them in more detail. First, extraordinary and exceptional conditions. This lot is very narrow, and when you factor in the R4 default side and rear setbacks with the OCRM critical area and setback buffer, it essentially renders the entire backyard undevelopable. And that would apply for a pool, a shed, or any other legally permitted accessory structure that would be located on the property. The conditions do not apply to other property in the vicinity. This is criteria number 2. The property to the west and the east are both undeveloped. And so none of those properties are similarly constrained in the sense that there's an existing structure with a really non-existent buildable envelope in the backyard. Number 3, this is the effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict criteria. I'm not going to stand up here today and say the lack of a pool is going to prevent the use of the property. That would be ridiculous. But the other part of the test is unreasonably restrict. And I would submit to the board that in the R4 district in Charleston County, you are legally permitted a pool. There are numerous pools on Johns Island, in backyards, in unincorporated Charleston County, to include properties on River Road. It would be unreasonable under these circumstances to not allow my clients to have the same accommodation. Will not be of substantial detriment. This is criteria number 4. We have several letters in the record expressing support, including support from the adjoining property owner. Number 5, the staff admits we satisfy. This is the one about not permitting a use that's not allowed in the underlying district. Pools are allowed by right as an accessory structure in R4, so long as you meet all the dimensional requirements. Number 6, this is the criteria that gets to whether the need for the variance is the result of the applicant's own action. We would submit that my clients were not responsible for building and configuring the existing structure on the property. They bought into the current condition. Moreover, my clients are not responsible for the location of the OCRM critical line, which periodically meanders based on Mother Nature and periodic regulatory review of OCRM, now known as the Bureau of Coastal Management. So OCRM is not even a thing anymore. And number 7 is the consistency with the comp plan or ZELDR. As I've mentioned, pools are a permitted use. Allowing this relief will enable my clients to not have to drive on and off the island to take their kids to other pools, thereby reducing traffic on and off of Johns Island, albeit incrementally. That's maybe not the lead argument in the case, but it is something that's talked about in the comprehensive plan. And so with all of that said, we believe we satisfy all 7 variance criteria. Again, we've designed this pool to minimize the scope of relief. In other words, this is not a Michael Phelps Olympic swimming pool in the backyard. This is more of like a swimming, it's a small pool is what I'm trying to say. So with that said, I see I'm at 0, and I'm happy to answer any question that the board members may have this evening.
Mr. Neal.
Thanks for that presentation. The only one I have is, have you seen the recommendations by staff as additional recommendations if this were to be approved, and are the client okay with those?
We have, and we're more than happy to cooperate with these conditions, including, preserving the buffer and ensuring that there's no adverse stormwater impacts.
Yeah, the rain barrel and all that stuff. Okay. All right, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chisholm?
Thank you for coming, appreciate it. I might be very well may be more persuaded to support this if we had some support from environmental groups. We have these critical lines set for a reason. We've got to, I use the analogy before, play them as they lie in golf. We've got these rules that are in place that are there to protect the environment. Do you have any letters of support from any environmental groups? DHEC, I know they've split off from, now from OCRM. Or if you wanted to defer, you think you could get something like that, would it help you?
So what I could say to that is we do not have letters of support from environmental groups. I assume you mean like nonprofit groups like Coastal Conservation League and things of that nature. I will tell you that those organizations religiously monitor Board of Zoning Appeals agendas for all the local governments in the area. The fact that they have not sent you anything proactively would indicate that they do not have any heartburn with this matter. But I certainly can't speak for them one way or the other, but I don't think this is something that typically what you see on the BZA is that if someone's trying to do a huge subdivision or something on Wadmalaw, you're going to get letters of opposition and things of that nature. We don't have that here. All the letters in the record are in support of this request.
Yes, sir.
And just to make sure, Mr. Appel, your request here for the variance is not for the critical line itself, it's for the buffer on the critical line, correct?
That is right. So if we could maybe pull up the site plan for a second. This working? Thank you so much. So if you see at the sort of top of the page there, sort of let's call it the northeast portion of the property line, there's that meandering line up there. That's the OCRM critical line.
Right.
And so OCRM actually has no regulatory purview in any of the area we're talking about there. The critical line for OCRM's purposes are, waterward of the critical line. That's where you got to go to get your approval for docks and things of that nature. But what Charleston County has done, like many other local governments in South Carolina on the coast, they've leveraged the OCRM critical line for zoning purposes to essentially prevent development too close to the critical area, marshes, beaches, things of that nature. And so Charleston County has two regulations relevant here. The first is a 15-foot buffer requirement off the critical line. So that's that next wavy line, landward from the critical line. To be clear, no portion of the pool is getting anywhere into that buffer area. That's going to be preserved and protected in its natural state. But Charleston County also has a 35-foot setback from the critical line, which is the next line landward, and that's where the pool is located 20 feet at its max into that setback area. But as you can see from this visual, when you factor in the 35-foot setback from the critical line, nothing can be built in the backyard. I mean, you're essentially smushed right up against the rear of the house and the existing porch and the driveway and things of that nature. So, and that's the other thing with these critical lines, they're not, yeah, exactly. They're not straight lines. They're meandering. And in fact, those little points there on the critical line are all, they have to do with water testing, vegetation testing that's done by OCRM. And so I hope that answers the question for the record.
I wanted to make sure we were talking about the buffer and not the critical line. That helps.
Correct.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else on my left? Mr. Nelson?
Mr. Appel, one, I need to commend you, first of all, for having an outstanding first name. That's always commendable.
Thank you.
But two, I need to commend you for, I think originally you correctly noted that DHEC no longer exists. And that
Correct.
we're dealing with Department of Environmental Services and the Bureau of Coastal Management. So that was a good catch. That's a new change that most people are not aware of.
Yep.
Along those lines, the Bureau of Coastal Management and the Critical Line Survey, do you know how much it has shifted back and forth over the years?
Oh, boy, this is, you mean historically where it's been over the years? My understanding is that, as sea levels have risen and we've been getting more high king tides and things of that nature, you typically are seeing critical lines pushing more and more landward into private property. And there's a lot of angst and consternation about that, perhaps in the General Assembly recently, where they're talking about, changing the approach to drawing these lines and grandfathering lines and things of that nature. You also see this on the beach. But yeah, I mean, this has been a general trajectory landward in this location over the years.
Yeah, I was trying to tell from the previous plat about how far it had moved landward, which is typically what we've seen. We see a lot of these cases every year where a house was built 30 years ago and the critical line has changed dramatically.
Right.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Thank you so very much, sir, for your testimony today.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Do we have anyone else to speak in favor of this application?
Hi.
Hello.
Oh, I should have started earlier. Hey, y'all. Thank you for having us.
Yes.
I'm Meg. We live at 1319 River Road. I got up here and I just kind of went blank. I might start crying in a second. We have been trying to do this for a long time. When we moved into our house in 2017, he was just born. Sorry, Archer. And we were told, no problem, no sweat. It's big enough, because the last thing I want to do is make it anywhere near the water. We love where we live. The creek is always low. Rarely gets very high, but regardless, we love that. And we just kind of are stuck on our own little wonderful land, because we're on River Road. I don't know if you're familiar with River Road. It's kind of a highway. But we're far enough back. We don't get any trouble from that. And some of the neighborhoods that are near us, he has friends, so sometimes he can go to their neighborhood pool, and I have to kind of be at their mercy if they want to invite Mom over and hang out at their pool. But that's not the point. It's just something we've always really wanted, and we have no big grand trees out there, and nothing but that corner is really kind of stopping us. We even changed up our whole back porch, redid our back stairs, brought it all in just in anticipation for the pool that we were going to build. And then our awesome pool guy said, hey, we got a little hitch. So that's kind of when it started. We're here begging for y'all's mercy. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see if anyone has a question for you. Anyone on my right? Anyone on my left? Thank you so very much for your testimony. Anyone else?
Hi, I'm Ron Teed. I'm the other co-owner at 1319 River Road, 29455 with my wife, Margaret. I just wanted to kind of make it clear that we've taken this whole process very seriously. When we moved there, we were told by multiple realtors that a pool was a given, and obviously that was my fault to not verify that, but so be it. So when we went to the process, hired pool company, they appropriately said, you need a variance. And so we took our time, because if we do this, I want it done right and diligently. I reviewed some BCA decision myself, and I hired counsel. I'm just a peds ophthalmologist, so I wanted to make sure if we do this right, we do it. So if we do this, we do it correctly with an appropriate application, because what I want to do is, if this gets approved, we're going to do it faithful to the spirit of the law, protect the environment, enjoy our property, and make sure that our neighbors, both human and non-human, do well with this. I just want to make it clear that we take this very seriously, and I hope that our application reflects that.
Okay. Yes, sir.
I just had one question. Thank you for
Sure.
your comments. According to your POA or HOA, you're not allowed to place the pool in front of the house. Is that correct?
So we do not have a property or homeowners association.
Okay.
Our understanding, and Council Appel may be able to answer this a little more, but is that that requires a variance as well. There is space in the front yard, but our understanding is that that is a more difficult ask. But we don't have an actual organization in the area that specifically restricts that. But I would defer to Appel for any further clarification of that.
Thank you. Do we?
Yeah, R4 zoning, it wouldn't be allowed to be in the front. It would require variance.
Okay, thank you.
R4?
To my left? I had a question for you.
With the pool in the front yard?
So the pool is for Archer?
So the pool is for, good question. So the pool is for the family.
I see Archer
Yes.
standing up there.
Yes, yeah,
Why don't you pick him up and bring him to the mic? I'm going to do something I've never done before.
So this is Archer Teed, our youngest son. Who's
Hey, Archer. Archer, can you swim?
Yes.
Are you a good swimmer?
Yes.
Are you really wanting this pool?
Of course.
And Archer, how old are you?
7.5.
7.5. Okay, very good. And what school do you attend, Archer?
Angel Oak Elementary.
Say again?
Angel Oak Elementary.
Angel Oak Elementary. Okay, and you are an excellent student, right? Okay, then we'll see if we can help Mommy and Daddy get you this pool, okay? All right, thank you, Archer.
You are welcome.
Very good. You may have a seat, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Do we have anyone else to speak in favor of this application? Do we have anyone else to speak in favor of this application? Do we have anyone to speak in opposition to this application? Very good. Please come forward. Please state your name and address for the record. And tell us why we should disapprove this application. Bring the mic down so we can hear every word that you have to say.
I'm not quite as short as Archer, but my name is Susan Kershaw. I live at 3605 Berry Hill Road on Johns Island. 3 cases have come before you this evening asking for variances to encroach across the OCRM critical line and buffer setback zones. I'm concerned about these because they threaten our salt marshes. I've been watching these meetings with you all for about a year now, and it's obvious that you are very thoughtful and serious about your responsibilities. Thank you for that and for the time you put in. I want to convince you that we need to think more broadly about our marshes. They protect our communities from flooding, and they help maintain a healthy water quality. The loss of our marshes threatens public health and safety. We need to minimize those losses by more strictly enforcing the OCRM buffer and setback zones. Our marshes are threatened by rising ocean levels. As waters rise, the vegetation drowns and the banks erode. Left to themselves, the marshes would migrate to higher ground and continue to do their job. To allow the migration is one of the purposes of the critical line setbacks. But one by one, we are chipping away at these protection zones and put hard edges behind the marshes that prevent them from moving inland. Bulwarks, structures, driveways, roads, lawns, swimming pools, all stop the marsh from moving to higher ground. So the marsh drowns and it disappears. Without healthy salt marshes, we will experience even more flooding. This is a threat to public health and safety. And I feel like that makes it fail criteria number 4. Staff focuses on the impact on adjacent properties, but in that criteria, it does talk about the public good. I encourage you to begin to think about the marshes as a protection for us, and to begin to protect them a little bit more by being more strict about these OCRM setbacks. Thank you.
Thank you so very much for your testimony. If you would just hold up, there you go.
Yes.
Let's find out if we have any of these board members that might have a question for you. I'm going to start on my left. Anyone on my left? Anyone on my right? Well, I will just say this. I thank you so very much for taking time to research this information. It's probably something that is embedded in your mind and in your heart. And you're right. We do take an oath to guard our marshes and our wetlands. And so everybody here on this board will really try to defend everything at all times to protect the rights and the benefits of our community. So I want to tell you, thank you for coming to this board meeting today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Do we have anyone else to speak in opposition? Do we have anyone else to speak in opposition? Okay. With that being said, you also have the right of rebuttal. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'll be brief, and I appreciate the comment from the speaker just now. I just want to clarify for the record that this proposal will not involve the loss of any marsh. We're not seeking to fill wetlands. There's no environmental permits that are necessary in this case for anything, and there's no hard edges that are going to be part of this project. This is not a request to install a bulkhead or a wall or some of the things you see on the beaches, and really frankly some of the areas along marshes as well, where you see rock revetments and things of that nature. Everything is being done on private property completely outside of the environmental regulatory agency's jurisdiction. And then I would just say that, we have one person that's not in favor of this. We've got a multitude of folks in the record that are supportive of the request, including the adjacent neighbors that are the most, impacted here directly as far as their direct interests are concerned. But again, I would just ask the board to give us due consideration. Again, we've tried to engineer this pool not to seek the maximum. Like if we tried to put the biggest pool in the backyard possible back there, we could come before you guys with that request. But that's not what we've done. We've designed a pool that is 100% out of the OCRM or BCR. I forget what the new acronym.
BCM.
BCM. I'll get it soon. It's completely out of the buffer, and it makes only the absolute minimum necessary incursion into the setback in order for there to be a pool. So it's not we're not being greedy with the request here. We're being very sacrosanct and trying to really strike the right balance between accommodating this feature, but also minimizing the impacts to the natural environment and the need for the variance request before the board this evening.
Thank you, sir.
So thank you again.
Thank you, sir. Very good. This case is closed to the public. Board members, do we have any question of staff? Do we have any general discussion?
I do have one point of reference. Do we need to change anything on the application or the variance request where we're saying the variance request is to reduce the setback by 20 feet to 15?
Yeah, I'll fix that.
Okay.
On all
Right. I'm just making
documentation
sure.
moving forward.
Yeah. If
I have a
somebody
note.
made a motion for that, I wanted to make it be correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any good comment? Good point of clarity. Any other questions of staff or general concerns? If not, therefore, I need a motion, please, to either approve or deny this particular case, 793.
Mr. Chair, in the matter of BZA case 0624000793, I would make a motion that we approve the variance request. In making my motion, I find that it meets all seven of the criteria. That one, there are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to this piece of property, and while listening to the testimony and searching through the various plats that were provided to us in our materials, It is apparent that the marsh has probably moved somewhere in the order of 10 to 15 feet since the house was constructed in the early 2000s, which is something that I've witnessed in my professional career over and over again, and probably will continue to do so. So it would have been interesting had a pool been proposed back when the house was constructed, whether or not it could have been built in a way that did not encroach upon either the setback or the buffer. So I do find that there are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to the piece of property. That two, these conditions do not generally apply to other properties in the vicinity. As the applicant has stated, the property is located between several undeveloped parcels of land, and those are much wider, probably have more room to install pools. So it does not apply to the other properties in the vicinity. For criterion 3, these conditions, the application of the ordinance, because of these conditions, the application of this ordinance to this particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or reasonably restrict utilization of the property. And as the applicant's attorney has, I think, very reasonably stated in looking at criterion 3 and really focusing on the unreasonably restrict utilization of the property, that given that this pool could be permitted in many other situations in Charleston County, had it not been located adjacent to the critical line, that we can meet criterion 3, that application of the ordinance would unreasonably restrict utilization of the property and should grant this variance request. For criterion 4, that authorization of the variance will not be of substantial detriment to the adjacent property or to the public good, and the character of the zoning district will not be harmed by granting of the variance. In meeting this criterion, the fact that the buffer would remain, which does go to great lengths to protect the adjacent marsh, I believe we meet that criterion. For criterion 5, that we shall not grant a variance, the effect of which would be to allow the establishment of the use that is not otherwise permitted in the zoning district. We are not allowing a use that's not permitted, so we meet criterion 5. For criterion 6, this variance is, the need for the variance is not the result of the applicant's own actions. Again, I fall back on the changes to the critical line that have occurred since the residence was constructed over 20 years ago, that is the primary driver for needing the variance request as opposed to the applicant's own actions. And for criterion 7, that granting of the variance does not substantially conflict with the comprehensive plan or the purposes of the ordinance. I believe we meet that criterion as well. In making my motion, I would propose the 4 special conditions recommended by staff.
Second. Okay, very good. It's been properly moved in second by Mr. Neal to approve this motion. Any discussion?
I had 2 comments. Number one, I was persuaded by an argument made by Mr. Appel regarding environmental groups throughout in the Low Country follow these matters very carefully, and none of them have voiced any objection to this under these conditions. Number 2, the applicant followed the correct procedure, which impressed me, rather than somebody that builds it and then gets caught and comes in here and asks for some help. And number 3 was condition number 2 that staff has recommended is designed to protect the marsh to benefit the public.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Any other comments, discussion? Very good. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye and raising your right hand.
Aye.
Aye. It is unanimous, and it carries. Congratulations. Within 10 days, you'll be getting information from staff letting you know the next steps in the application. Archer.
Thank you all.
Thank you all so much.
We want to see you in the Olympics about 15 years from now, right? Because you're going to work on some backstrokes, some breaststrokes, and everything, right? You're going to be an excellent swimmer. You agree to that? I can't hear you.
Yes, sir.
All right. Very good.
Start bringing him to court.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you all again. Appreciate it.
Very good. Our next case is case BZA 0624-00794, and it'll be administered by Mr. Joshua Downey.
So the applicant and property owner, Brian K. Ezon, is requesting a variance to reduce the required setbacks for attached carport and unpermitted detached shed at 1615 Refuge Run, TMS number 331-0700116 on James Island in Charleston County. More specifically, to reduce the required 5-foot interior side setback for an attached carport, to reduce the 3-foot interior side rear setback for a existing unpermitted shed, and to reduce the required 6-foot separation between the existing dwelling and the detached shed for an existing unpermitted shed. The subject property and surrounding properties are all located in the low-density R4, the low-density manufactured housing subdivision MHS zoning district. So the 0.16 acre subject property contains a modular home that was placed on the property in 1992 per Charleston County records, and the accessory structure in question was placed on the parcel in 2004 according to the applicant, but no permits were obtained for the structures when they were erected. So that is the definition, section 4.13, that gives the setbacks for the MHS zoning district along with the accessory structure setback definitions. That is the subject property. The 300-foot radius map, an aerial view of the subject property, and a zoomed out aerial view of the subject property. So staff did conduct site visits on the 16th of July, along with the 9th of August. So that is the unpermitted shed, the subject property, Refuge Run. These were photos provided by the applicant. And the site plan, the plat of the neighborhood. So staff believes that criteria 1 may have been met and meets criteria 2, 3, 4, and 5, and it may meet criteria 6 and 7. And then staff does not have any conditions for this application. Any questions?
Any questions? Any questions? Yes, sir, Mr. Nelson.
So this shed has been in place for 20 years?
Yes, sir.
There's no statute of limitations we can fall back on?
Unfortunately not.
Okay.
Prior to 2001, we got you. Anything past 2001, yeah, it's got to come into compliance.
And what's driving the need for the request now?
I'm not sure. That might be a question for the applicant. This might have been another code case.
Okay.
Code enforcement is hard at work, aren't they? Yes. Well, thank you, sir. Is the applicant present? Please state your name and address for the record, and please tell us why we should approve your application, sir.
My name is Brian Keith Uzon. My address is 1615 Refuge Run, Charleston, South Carolina.
Thank you, sir. Tell us why we should approve your application, sir.
Well, I couldn't build the shed anywhere else because of the shape of the property. If it was a rectangle property, I could have built the shed anywhere else. I didn't know I needed a permit at the time. I learned a lot.
You built this shed, sir?
Yes.
Okay, it's not one.
Me and my friends.
Oh, okay. Okay. It looks real nice. Doesn't look like something you would buy that you would buy from Lowe's or Home Depot. Okay.
No, I'm a contractor. I was a contractor in metal studs and drywall, so I knew how to build it.
Uh-oh. You might have kind of put a nail in a coffin there when you said that.
No, I worked for a contracting company. I mean,
that's still a nail in the coffin. Okay.
I wasn't a contractor myself. I built it myself with my family.
Okay. Okay. Tell us a little bit more, please, sir. Yeah, I understand that the shape of the property, yeah, you may not have had much room, but tell us about these carports at the front.
Okay. In 2016, Hurricane Matthew came through and did a lot of damage to my front porch, and I didn't have a carport at the time. So after that, I got a little insurance money, and I was gonna fix stuff, and when I started fixing it, I started building stuff, not knowing that I needed a permit. Because the neighbor told me I didn't have to have one. My fault. That's my fault. I paid a fine for that and for the application to talk to you guys. So what I'm doing now, so I can get a building permit, I've already had it engineered. It cost me more money, which I should have done a long time ago. And I want to finish building what I was building. And I've got it engineered, got it approved and everything else. I need to get a permit so I can continue to build it. I haven't done anything since I got stopped. I can't remember the date, 2016, 18, I got stopped from building because I didn't know I needed a permit.
So what brings you to this board today, though?
I need to get this approved so that I can get a permit to
Okay, so
finish the work.
you made reference, you came into the office and you, or your contractor, tried to get permit.
I'm not a licensed contractor.
Well, I'm saying the person that's gonna do the work, they came up here to try to get a permit, right?
No, I did.
You did?
I did.
Okay. Well, at least you're doing better.
So this wasn't code enforcement?
No, this was not code enforcement. Let's see if anyone have any questions for you. Anybody on my right?
Yes, I do
Yes,
have.
sir.
Looking at the picture, can we show a picture, maybe the side picture of it? I was just curious. This is a shed, so this is, any one. That one right there is fine. So this doesn't have plumbing or anything? I mean, this is just a storage shed.
Yes,
You're
sir.
putting lawnmowers in it, shovels, whatever else.
Generator,
So
yes,
is it
sir.
up on is there a foundation underneath it or something, or you just
It's
built
on-
it up
it's
on
on-
2x4s?
It's
4x4s.
No, it's on, it's sunk in the ground with concrete and piers, like
Right.
like 6x6s and strapped down.
So like a wood foundation?
Yes.
I got you. And this is one unit, y'all brought it in with the, rolled it in or something, or?
No, I built it in place.
You built it in place? I got you. I'm fine, Mr. Chair, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on my right? Any questions on my left? Thank you so very much for your testimony, sir.
Thank y'all for your time.
Yes, sir. Do we have anyone else to speak in favor of this application? Do we have anyone else to speak in favor of this application? Do we have anyone to speak in opposition? Very good. This case is closed to the public. Board members, do we have any questions of staff this time for this case? Do we have any other general question discussion?
Can you, am I right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So he's asking to reduce the required 5-foot setback to what? I mean, what is the actual reduction in the variance that he's trying to ask for? I mean, obviously, it's real close on the side yard, the interior side yard. What is the rules? I mean, are we talking a major reduction here, or are we just going from 5 feet to 3 feet, or?
I don't have those numbers in front of me, and it's not indicated on the site plan, and I don't want to give a wrong answer.
Yeah, I'd like to. Because, I mean, the side setbacks are usually very small anyway. 5 feet, 10 feet at the most. Mr. Nelson, you happen to know that with your great history here?
Mr. Hughes?
I think it is a 5-foot setback. We just don't know what he's requesting.
I don't know what it's being reduced to, but the setbacks.
What he's requesting, how far he needs to go, 5 to 3 or 5 to 2 or something? Is that what the question really is?
We'll say somewhat less than 5.
Yeah, so we're not talking a major reduction here then?
Yeah, it's less than 5.
Yeah, I'm fine. Thank you very much.
You just don't have 5 to give, that's all.
Right.
Any other concerns or discussion? Okay. Well, board members, at this time, I really need a motion to approve or deny this case. Okay, Mr. Sedell?
Mr. Chairman, in the matter of BCA case 0624-00794, I make a motion that we approve this variance. I'm convinced that it meets all 7 criteria. First, that there are extraordinary exceptional conditions pertaining to the property. I think the shape of lot and clearly the aerial view shows that makes this an exceptional case. The conditions do not apply to other property in the vicinity. You can see the other lots are different shape. A lot of them are rectangular. We meet criteria number 2. Number 3, unnecessary prohibits or restricts the use of the property. Again, the shape of the lot restricts where such storage buildings can be placed and placement of carport as well. And in criteria number 4, the variance will not substantially be a detriment to adjacent property and public good. The applicant has stated and there are typical sheds of this type in this neighborhood. It's generally accepted. Number 5, will not establish a use not permitted in the zoning districts. This type of building is permitted in this zoning area. The need for the variance does not result in the applicant's actions. We heard testimony from the applicant that he observed similar sheds in the neighborhood. He was not aware that he needed a requirement. It's 20 years old, and I think that given the circumstances that it meets this requirement. And finally, number 6 will not conflict with the comprehensive plan. It makes this a hardship here. This is something that happened many years ago, been in place. Does not, the variance requested is very small. And the opposition, so I'm sorry, that's all the requirements. So therefore, Mr. Chairman, we make a motion.
Did you skip 7? No?
Will not substantially conflict with the comprehensive plan.
Okay. All right.
I'm sorry, left that out. So I'll move that we approve the variance.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Do we have a second? Mr. Nelson, thank you. Any other general discussion? Very good. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye and raising your right hand. Aye. Any opposed? There is none. It carries. Congratulations, sir. Within the next 10 days, staff will let you know exactly the next steps, and you will be getting information in 10 days through certified mail. Okay? Thank you. Good luck and good night. Congratulations once again. Oh, we're almost there. Our next case, BZA 0624-00794. Mr. Downey will be back up for us. 795, excuse me. Thank you.
Don't make us do it again.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
All right, so BZA case 0624-00795. The applicant, Zach Carmel, and the property owner, Josh Teets of Taylor Built Construction, are requesting a variance to reduce the required 50-foot OCRM critical line setback and reduce the 35-foot OCRM critical line buffer for a proposed residence covered porch and pervious driveway at 1539 Murphy Island Court, TMS number 617-1400009 in the east area of Charleston County. The subject property contains 0.43 acres of highland and is currently vacant. The subject property and adjacent properties are located in the rural residential zoning district in phase 1 of the Paradise Island subdivision that was platted in 1995. Charleston County adopted the required setbacks for the OCRM in 2001. So that is the RR zoning district's setbacks and buffers. And also Article 4.24, the waterfront development standards. a zoning map of the subject property, the 300-foot radius map, an aerial view of the subject property, and a zoomed out aerial view of the subject property. Staff did conduct site visits on July 16th and August 9th. That is the subject property, Murphy Island Court, the survey of the property, and the proposed site plan, the plat of Paradise Island, Phase 1. So staff believes for this application, criteria 1 for, it may meet criteria 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 7, and it meets criteria 5. So the Board of Zoning Appeals may approve with conditions, or deny BZA case 06-24-00795. In the event that the board decides to approve the application, the board should consider the following recommendations by staff. Prior to commencing construction, silt fencing shall be installed along the critical line. The silt fencing shall remain and be maintained for the duration of construction. The applicant shall use stormwater mitigation measures such as the use of rain barrels, rain gardens, to reduce the flow of stormwater into the marsh. The encroachment area shall be limited to the footprint area shown on the submitted site plan. And the applicant shall use pervious materials for the areas of the driveway that are encroaching to the OCRM critical line buffer. The pervious material shall be approved by Charleston County Planning Department and Charleston County Stormwater. Any questions?
Any questions of staff? Thank you, sir. Is the applicant present? Very good. Please state your name and address for the record, and please tell us why we should approve your application, sir.
My name is Zach Carmel. I'm here on behalf of 1539 Murphy's Island Court. Want to build a house on this property. This development was done a long time ago. There is infrastructure, drainage, retention ponds in this area. These lots were meant for houses to be built on them. There is a minimum square footage required by the HOA for this subdivision, and many houses, most of the houses have required a variance and been given a variance so you can get the house put on the lots there. It's a very awkward shaped lot, but it is very beautiful. There's a lot of potential there for a beautiful home site, and just not requesting anything that other homes have not been given a variance on in that subdivision.
Okay. Are you a builder?
I am not a builder.
Okay. So this is for your personal use?
This will be for my personal use eventually when I sell my home.
I see. I don't know, you distract me as a contractor. I'm sorry. Okay.
That's no slight on contractors.
No, that's no slight, no. It's just his demeanor. Yes, sir.
If he's through, yeah, I'm ready to ask a question. I believe there's an HOA for this development for Paradise Island. And since this has not been built, I normally like to see the HOA and the ARB and all that stuff, because anytime a group with an ARB starts looking at houses and shingles and porches and all that stuff, they like to make changes. So again, we've got a rule on just this application, but since this house is not built, which is great, I'd rather see go to the HOA and get all of their approvals first. Is there any reason why you can't defer, or are you going to want us to make a decision tonight based on without knowing what else is going there? Because if you don't have HOA approval, unless you haven't provided that information to us for a reason, why we couldn't defer this, go get the HOA approval from the ARB, and then come back, because they might come back and say we don't want a covered porch on the end that goes into the setback area.
I have submitted the house plan to the HOA. I have not paid the initial $1,600 fee, and they would require Charleston County to approve this variance before they approve the house plan, and it would cost me a lot more time and money to not do this step first and go through them and then come back to y'all and then not have the variance and then go back to them. But they've seen the house plans.
They've seen the house plans?
Yes, they have, but I do not have because the developer, William Barnwell, asked me to send them in to the HOA when he saw the sign on the lot for the BZA hearing, and I sent it in, but they do require Charleston County to approve, before they do anything, but they have the right to stop me from doing anything even if y'all do approve it.
Mr. Downey?
So similar to the case that we had earlier tonight, with the rules of certain neighborhoods, Paradise Island, I know of, is one that has the rule that they get their approvals from Charleston County first before their ARB issues their approval. If the board would like to put a condition that the variance shall be limited to the approval of the ARB, that would not be advantageous.
I'll save my comment for discussion. Okay, so do you have any proof that you've submitted the plans to the house and stuff like that to the HOA?
Yes, sir.
Because
I have an
we don't
email.
have anything here as part of the package.
Yes, sir. I have an email to the Property Management Services, which is the property management
Right.
HOA
It's
to.
normally a property management group that manages the HOA. I mean, I just think I need a little bit more information on something like that. That's for my personal use. All right, thank you.
All right.
Okay. Good question, good comment. Anyone else on my right?
I had a question.
Yes, sir. I'm gonna, well, you know what? Yeah, I turned my head, he walked off. I'm gonna come back to you, but was there a question over here? Ms. Smalls?
I was just wondering if you could tell us the size of the house that you're building. It looks like you're going pretty far back here into the OCRM critical line.
So
What's the size of the
the
home
size
being built?
the size is 3,300 square feet, and the higher ground of the property is actually back to the right. The OCRM, the critical line, goes actually all the way to the front at the cul-de-sac where the driveway is entered. So it's actually higher ground and less impacting the further I slide the house back.
Ms. Smalls, I hate to interrupt, and I hope I'm not out of order, but Paradise Island, I'm also aware that Paradise Island has a minimum size for their homes. So that is not a result of the applicant's own action.
Well, he's on the point. I tell you, that's Claflin University.
Could be configured in different.
My colleague asked the question and I would have asked.
Okay. Any more, Mr. Nelson?
Sure. Mr. Carmel, thank you for your time. Yeah, it is interesting. You brought up a point for Paradise Island in particular that we see, I don't know, probably 5 cases per year coming from various development activities out at Paradise Island, and every single time the plat from 1995 is produced, and you can see the size of this lot in 1995, and there was actually, there might have been one small piece of critical area on this lot at that time. And you flip to the newest plat that you've had done showing the home plans, and it's yet another area where the marsh has encroached 15, 20 feet, maybe even more in some areas on that property. So this is a common problem on Paradise Island. And, I guess along those lines, the county has recommended some special conditions that would help alleviate the potential to impact salt marsh by virtue of building as close to the marsh you would have to now. Did you have any issues with the conditions that counties recommended?
Not at all. No, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Neal?
My question's really not going to be for the applicant, but I don't want us to close the public hearing without having some discussion or at least a point of emphasis on this issue of the HOA hadn't really seen anything. And I mean, if Paradise Island is one of the HOAs that wants to come here first, I understand it. That's their prerogative to go through their ARBs or whatever. But it would be nice to have some type of letter from the HOA property management group or somebody that says, we have seen the site plan, we are approving the site plan, but and that won't change, but we might be changing the roof line or something like that. But I think a site plan or something like that, some type of letter that says the basic overall structure is not going to change, and then we could come and vote on something. I think a deferral would help that, because it would give them the time of 60 days. So we don't need a full approval from the ARB, but it sure would be nice and helpful to get a site plan approval from an HOA. And I don't think that's too much to ask.
I know one way we've looked, sorry.
Mr. Hughie?
Well, I mean, I understand the dilemma, but I mean, you have to think of this almost as concurrent jurisdictions. Part of this is governed by the county, and the county does not usurp what the HOA or ARB will require in this neighborhood. So if the county approves something that is not approved by his HOA, it's not going to get built. So there are two different jurisdictions here. And so to the degree that his HOA or any HOAs or ARBs are saying, go to the county for this, they're still not going to allow this applicant or any other applicant to build something that's not consistent with their rules. So it's really two sets of rules.
I agree with that, but part of our decision-making process, or at least for me, is how far they're going into the critical line. Are they going into the critical line or critical buffer area by 1 foot or by 5 feet or by 10 feet? And a site plan directs all of that. And if the applicant is coming in for a 5-foot change in the buffer versus a 25-foot, then that makes me look at the restrictions a little bit different sometimes, or did they meet the test? And so it's hard for me to make a fair decision and a consistent decision on buffers when I don't care what the shingles look like. I don't care what the roof structure looks like, but I do care about how far we're going into the setback and things like that. And to be consistent, I just think, I'm not trying to put that requirement on the HOA, but I think it's a fair question to ask, and a deferral gives the applicant the chance to keep that process going. I understand why he might not have submitted the plans in time. There's all types of fees and all type of stuff. So maybe it's just one hoop we're asking them to go through and bring back a little bit more information so I can make an informed decision. That's where I am.
And I'm not rejecting that, but I think it goes back to what Brandon said earlier, which is the plat that's going to be approved is the plat that's in the application. So you would be making a decision based on where the critical line shows.
And that makes it even clearer, unfortunately, for me.
I'm just.
No, that's fine.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Nelson?
I think we should
I'm
finish
sorry,
the
Joshua,
public
not
hearing
Brandon.
portion of this.
I apologize.
Well, we were asking questions. I thought you had a question for the applicant.
I do not have a question.
Okay, okay. Does anybody else have a question for the applicant? Okay. Thank you so very much for your testimony, sir.
Thank you for your time, and thank you, Ms. Working, Mr. Downs, and Ms. Genesis. I've never met her. Thank y'all for your time as well.
Do we have anyone else to speak in favor of this application? Do we have anyone else to speak in favor? All right. Do we have anyone to speak in opposition? Very good. Please state your name and address for the record, and tell us why we should deny this application.
My name's Kirk Heinold. My address is 4574 Cape Island Drive.
You said Handel?
Heinold. 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 H-E-I-N-O-L-D.
Heinold. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks. This has been interesting to watch. And so it's the way this committee handles, and it's very civil, has been really, I might come more often even when I don't have anything to say. So I live behind the property, and I'm not necessarily opposed to it, but I am under the impression from my conversations with the board that the plans have not been presented to the board and they haven't reviewed them. So that's all I was asking for, not that they be denied, but that it be deferred for the board to be able to review the plans. And then, and just brought up just square footage, like I'd love to see good houses built that improve my home value, and that'll be great. But the square footage limit, and I don't want to misspeak, but it's somewhere in the 2,400 to 2,700 range. And I hope he builds a nice, big, beautiful house that'll help. But I think that's something that needs to be considered that the ARB should look at too. And those are my only concerns. And I think it's something we'd love to see approved in the neighborhood, but it seems like it needs to be deferred for approval from our ARB, in my opinion too, and in my experience with the Paradise Island Homeowners Association and the approval process that I went through as well.
So let me ask a question. Are you on the ARB?
I am not.
Okay. So can we pull up the picture, the aerial picture?
Yeah, I saw a nice picture of my house.
Okay.
Look right into my bedroom.
No, don't want to do that. All right, so that house there closest to the subject property?
Yeah, so
right there. Is that your house? That's
No. We call that the sideways house. I'm directly behind it. Right there with the swim. Yep, that's it, right there.
Okay. I just wanted as a point of reference. So you across the river?
No, we're across like a little marsh right there, but
yeah.
it relatively stays dry except for a king marsh.
Okay.
That's what I mean. I think it's going to be fine. I just also, like I heard from the board, just to let the ARB would like to look at it too. And I found it to be very reasonable. So.
Okay, hold on. We have another question. Mr. Nelson has a question for you.
So, Mr. Heinold,
yes, sir.
You said you went through this process once before?
Not through a variance. I didn't have a variance on my lot. Just through the ARB process for Paradise Island.
Okay, all right. I was going to ask if you had to come here first and then go to the BZA, but you didn't have to go through that.
No, my understanding, just trying to reach out and find it, they thought that, I think that there's interest in letting them look at the plan as well.
Okay.
And again, I think it's reasonable, we'll be fine, just asking for time.
Okay, hold on one moment. Do we have any more questions on this end? Any questions on this end? Okay. Well, thank you for your testimony today. Do we have anyone else to speak in opposition? All right, one more time today, right?
It's me again.
It's you.
And I'm going to keep coming back.
That's all right. We're glad to have you. We want to hear what you have to say.
I will try not to repeat myself. I will try to continue to hopefully educate. So the fact that the critical line has moved back on all these properties we're looking at is just an argument for being strict about maintaining the buffers, because the critical line is going to move back. If it doesn't move back, if we don't allow the critical line to move, we're going to lose the marsh. We're going to get flooding. We're going to get bad water quality. So that all of these critical lines are moving back just screams in my head that we have to be more strict about this. So, but I don't want to just talk about my emotion. So criteria 7, this development does substantially conflict with the comprehensive plan. Staff addresses land use 1, which about the issue of stormwater flow into the marsh. And I think there are additional areas of the comprehensive plan that need to be attended to. Natural resources element NR1 reads, continue to maintain the ZLDR to ensure that natural resources are protected prior to, during, and after development activities. The marsh itself will help protect our water quality and reduce flooding if we allow it to migrate inland by maintaining the protective zones. NR3 says we should continue to promote sustainable, low-impact development practices, including, among other things, critical line buffers and setbacks. The resilience element states the county will prioritize resilience, including resilience to stormwater events and rising sea levels and protection of natural defenses in all county plans, policies, and regulations to ensure the long-term survival of the community, which takes us back to approval of approval criteria number 4, that the public good is endangered if we don't maintain these buffer zones. So
Okay.
I think that's it for now. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Let me see if anybody has a question for you. Anyone? Yes, sir. Mr. Jordan.
Since this is a totally different case, can you state your name and address?
I'm sorry. Yes, I'm Susan Kershaw, and I live at 3605 Berry Hill Road on Johns Island.
Thank you, ma'am.
And
Thank you,
I
Mr.
have a
Jordan.
critical buffer zone on my land.
Hot diggity. You got wings. Okay. Anyone else? Thank you. Anyone else to speak in opposition? Anyone else to speak in opposition? Mr. Carmel, you also have the right of rebuttal.
I do, as myself, currently live off Cape Island Drive in Paradise Island. I have been through the BZA process and the HOA process before. I swore on oath that I'm telling the truth. I have an email from 7:30 where I emailed this house plan to Molly. I don't know how to say her last name, but she heads the HOA Property Management Services. I sent it to her and Billy Barnwell, which is the developer. They saw it. She acknowledged that she got it. She had no issues with it, but I have to pay the fee and submit colors charts. I have to get samples of siding with colors on them. I have to get a landscape plan. There's many things I have to do before they do any approval. If I don't have the approval from y'all override them as far as legality. They override me as far as what they want in their subdivision. But I love the neighborhood. I live in there, and I've been through the process. I currently live in there on the same street as this gentleman.
Okay. Hold on. Mr. Nelson has a question for you, sir.
So Mr. Carmel, thank you for responding. When you go to the HOA requesting a approval for the house, did they normally look at the actual location of where you're building the house and the maximum size of the house or your proposed square footage? Is that all part of their review, or is it more colors? And
It's that is part of the review. They look at the square footage. They want a minimal. My house is probably one of the smallest ones in the neighborhood. This one, even at 3,300 square foot. They, like I said, they do colors. They want all the trees marked over 12 inches that are on the property. They want to know which ones you're removing. They want to see double silt fence lines to protect the critical line. They are very stringent. It took me 6 months last time to get through the HOA process. My plans not only have to be structurally sound, they have to be stamped by an architect. They do not fool around, and but this is why it's better for me to have your approval before I even go to them, because it is a very long, drawn-out process, and it's very costly. And if I went through that without your approval first, it cost me another year. So that's kind of why I'm here asking. And like I said, even if y'all do approve these variances, they have the right to tell me I can't do it, and I wouldn't be allowed to do it. So.
okay, thank you.
Hold on, let's see. We had any other questions on that side? Any more questions? Any questions? Yes, sir.
I was just going to have one follow-up, and I won't beat the dead horse anymore, I promise. For my vote, and I'm one of 8 or 9 people up here, to get past why we're going into a critical zone area, buffer, whatever you want to call it, I don't see the downside of deferring for 30 days, as quick as possible, mainly for a site plan type of initiative from the HOA, that they're not going to move the house and the rest of the details. Now, I'm not asking for architectural drawings. I'm just trying to find where you're going to put the house, because that will impact where the critical lines and buffers and stuff. So if you could get that in a 30-day turnaround real quick, a letter from the HOA, that would be enough for my perspective to move forward. Without it, you're going to ask me for a vote on a variance that I'm not going to be able to move forward with. Now, I'm just one vote, and there's 6 or 7 other words that you can get their vote. but that's where I stand on mine. So I'm trying to help you, because if we move forward and there's not enough votes on here, then you've got to deal with a denial. So I'm trying to, you got to arm me with as much information as you can, and that's the piece of the puzzle that I'm trying to get.
The site plan I presented to you that shows all those, that's exactly what I'm presenting to the HOA, and that's exactly what I would build, because that's all I'd have a variance for from y'all. So
Looking for the HOA to say it's okay.
But I thought y'all were like the larger, like the HOA doesn't grant variances. That's all.
Mr. Dowling? You wanna, or Ms. Working, you wanna address that again?
So from our understanding with Paradise Island's approval process is that if there is a need for a variance, that they come before the Board of Zoning Appeals first, before the HOA will look at it. Understanding your point, but if the ARB or something comes back and says, well, this has to change, or the footprint of the building has to change, then we would have to look at the site plan to see if we can, one, administratively approve it, or it would have to come back before the board. But their process is BZA first, then them.
If I may respond? If I'm putting too much emphasis on whether the HOA wants it or not, the problem I really have is, why are we going into the buffer so far with a big house? Let's turn the house, make it smaller, and that gets me past criteria number 6, which is the need for the variance is not the result of the applicant's own actions. If he builds a smaller house, he doesn't need the variance. So I can make it real simple from one argument, and that is, I would say no. So I'm trying to help you find a way to say yes, and for me to say yes, just my one vote, I think we need something that says a site plan is not going to change, and this is the only way we can position the house. So that's just where I am. But there's 7 or other 8 votes, and I vote in the minority a lot of the time, so it's no problem to me. I'm just trying to help you find a way to get across the finish line.
Yes,
and
sir.
without the HOA's blessing on a site plan, I don't think I can support it.
That was the question I was asking earlier about the size of the house, and then he said it was 3,300. But then when the other gentleman did his presentation, it sounds like they don't allow houses that size. So there is some discrepancy. Maybe there is some discrepancy about, I guess, what's allowed by
I think there's
their
a minimum.
particular.
So there is if you look in your packets on the staff report, criteria 6, that question is answered briefly, but it doesn't go into detail, but it does say that the answer to criteria 6 is the need of the variance may not be the result of the applicant's own actions. The applicant's letter of intent says, no, this is an oddly shaped lot, and I only want to build a home that is close to the minimum requirements of the HOA.
Minimum requirements are 2,200, we heard that, or 2,300, maybe. But again, that's another HOA question, but you could position the house a different way, the driveway a different way. So I don't see the driving factor being this house has to be massive on this lot to agree. So I just disagree with you on that. And that's fine, that's not a problem, but I just.
Sir, I position the house, the HOA will not allow garages facing the street, so it has to be to that side.
I think one of the things that we normally see in an application that's really helpful is the actual buildable area shown on the plat, and in providing information such as the HOA saying that you can't have a garage facing the front is very helpful. It might have been helpful to have that earlier in this conversation. But along those lines, if you have to put your garage on the side of the house, is there any way that you could build a house on this lot without having to come here for a variance?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Fair question.
Okay, a lot of good discussion. I appreciate that. Thank you so very much for your testimony, sir.
Thank you.
All right, this case is closed to the public. Board members, do we have any other additional questions of staff? This is the time to ask them. Yes, sir.
Not staff, I just had some
General
comments.
well, okay, I was going to say that next, but yes, sir. Please proceed.
I have some frustration or some concerns. It seems that on Paradise Island, everything's an exception and the critical line means nothing. Every piece of property is unique, and
keep having people come before us and ask for a variance on every single one, so it's almost like we don't have a rule. The only rule is that everybody's entitled to a variance, which is frustrating. We want to maintain a critical line where we can. I think the site plan is on page 20, as I understand it, and just having a blanket rule that the important critical lines, I guess that's redundant, but the critical lines on Paradise Island are meaningless. It bothers me. It seems everybody gets an exception, and we ought to be feeding everybody out of the same spoon of justice, whether you're on Paradise Island or John's Island or anywhere else. So those things bother me, and I would echo what Mr. Neal had to say about wanting to see if there are any alternatives where you don't have to intrude into the critical line or environmentally sensitive places.
Well, we are special people over there east of the Cooper now. We see things a little differently east of the Cooper now.
That one.
I'm just teasing, but yeah, I understand your frustration. Any more general concerns or comments? Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, the only thing I will say that the applicant is being requested to come back, go to the HOA first and come back with something, and we've heard testimony that their process is BCA first. So this seems like a very unreasonable requirement for us to say, because he doesn't have it, then we can't approve it. And I find that we're putting him in a very difficult position to request something that he's not able to provide. So unless this HOA makes the decision to change their process or make an exception in this case, we're kind of making a decision based on procedural conflict with the HOA. So I just wanted to make that comment.
Okay.
One thing I would add to why we are sitting here tonight is Paradise Island being platted in the mid-'90s before Zeldar was even thought of is the very reason why we exist as a board. I mean, these are the cases that we are here to hear, because the plats that were created, essentially the Paradise Island development could not have been permitted under today's standards, period.
Right.
And so we're going to continue to have non-conforming lots that are going to require variances if somebody's going to build on a lot. Otherwise, what the county's actually doing is declaring that those lots that were platted 25, 30 years ago are not buildable. And I don't know if the county's willing to do that. It's not our position to actually say that. I think what we have to determine, is there a hardship here? Could he build a house out there without a variance? If not, I mean, we're going to be here either way.
That's almost a drop of mic kind of statement you made there. Okay. And very good. Ms. Moles, you smiling over there. You have a comment you want to make? Okay, you're going to leave that one alone? You won't follow it? Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen of this august body, I need a motion to approve, deny, defer, whatever we're feeling. We kind of need to hear it.
Mr. Chair, I would like to make a motion that we approve the request for the variance for BZA 0624000795. I do find that it meets all of the criteria necessary to receive the variance, that there are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to this particular piece of property. Again, just judging by when the lot was platted, how much things have changed on the property, and the fact that nothing could be built, in my opinion, on that property without a variance. It would meet the requirements of the neighborhood and meet all of the setbacks that the county requires. It would basically render the lot unusable. So we meet that criterion. For criterion 2, these conditions do not generally apply to other properties in the vicinity. Again, it's an irregularly shaped lot that was platted many years ago. We meet that criterion. I don't think newer neighborhoods would have these same difficulties that we face with Paradise Island on what seems to be a monthly basis. For criterion 3, because of these conditions, the application of this ordinance to this particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict utilization of the property. I believe if we were not to grant a variance, it would render it impossible to build a residence on the lot. So I believe we meet that criterion. For criterion 4, the authorization of the variance will not be of substantial detriment to the adjacent property or to the public good, and the character of the zoning district will not be harmed by the granting of the variance. We have heard from a neighbor that he would like for the house to be approved by the ARB, and I do believe that that would be a requirement before this house were to be constructed, and because of that, I believe we meet that criterion. For criterion 5, that the BZA shall not grant a variance, the effect of which would be to allow an establishment or uses otherwise not permitted. I think we're all in agreement that it is a residential lot with a residential structure, so we meet that criterion. For criterion 6, that the need for the variance is not the result of the applicant's own actions. We meet that criterion simply because of when this property was platted and how the changes to the, I'm not even going to call it OCR, well, I will call it OCRM, but BCM, OCRM critical line has changed over the years. And for criterion 7, that the granting of the variance does not substantially conflict with the comprehensive plan or the purposes of the ordinance. And by virtue of the special conditions that the staff has recommended be in play, I do believe those go to great length to help mitigate any potential impacts to the salt marsh when a house is constructed on the property. In making my motion, I would recommend all 4 of the special conditions recommended by staff. That is my motion.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion that has been properly moved and second.
Question on the motion. May I?
Yes, please.
On your motion, will it, if the HOA changes the site plan and he doesn't need, I don't know what the setback requirements, he's trying to get 35, trying to move the setback from 35 to 50 or whatever, and they come back and he only needs 40 instead of 35, will the variance still be in place for all 35, or will it go back to 40? Is there a provision you can put in your condition to follow that?
I'm going to defer to staff here, but I believe that would be a staff level decision that could be made based upon the actual site plan that was presented at that time.
Right. So in comparing the site plans, if the site plan is different, if the variance need is less, we will approve less. We just want to approve more.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. But I mean, if he doesn't need the variance to go all the way, because
right.
his site plan has changed, then staff level can say, well, you're only going to get this. You can't add
right.
on
So
to that.
on the permit that'll be approved, then we'll approve a permit.
That makes sense.
Site
Okay.
plan for less. Yeah.
Thank you.
So that's something you want to add into it possibly, or?
I think it's
Okay.
That's an administrative thing. That's
I was just making sure the checks and balances were there.
That's why the language in the staff report is up to. We do that so staff can have a buffer if needed.
Very good. All right, ladies and gentlemen, any more questions? Comments? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye and raising your right hand. Aye. All right, so we got 3. 4. Oh, hold your hands again. Okay. Any opposed? All right. We have 2. It carries. Ooh. Yeah. Your application was approved tonight. Congratulations. Within 10 days, you'll be getting information from staff, letting you know the next steps in the process. You worked us tonight, brother. You worked us tonight. Okay. Well, congratulations once again. All right. Last but not least, our last case for tonight, and I was shooting for 8:30. Case BZA 0624-00796, and Mr. Downey will close the door for us. Back in Wagamala.
All right, so BZA case 0624-00796.
The applicant Wilson Wapu of Access Construction LLC and the property owner Brian O'Neill are requesting a variance to reduce the required 30-foot rear setback by 27.2 feet to 2.8 feet for a screened-in porch, and to reduce the 30-foot rear setback by 22 feet to 7.7 feet for a detached garage at 2484 Maria Road, TMS number 150000002 on Wadmalaw Island in Charleston County. The subject property and surrounding properties to the east and west are located in the Agriculture AGR zoning district, and the properties to the north of the subject property is in the AG 15 zoning district. The property to the south is in the town of Rockville jurisdiction. The applicant would like to construct a 24 by 24 detached garage and a storage space above, not to be used as a dwelling, along with an attached screen porch on the 0.34 acre subject property. All right, so that is the AGR setbacks. That is the subject property. The 300-foot radius map, an aerial view, and zoomed out aerial view. Staff did conduct site visits on July 16th and August the 9th. The subject property, the proposed porch, the proposed area for the garage, the site plan. Here are the elevation of the garage, I believe. That is the approved and recorded plat. So for the criteria concerned, staff believes that it may meet criteria 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 7, and it meets criteria 5. So the Board of Zoning Appeals may approve with conditions, or deny this case, and staff does not have any recommendations for conditions. Any questions?
Any questions of staff?
I have one question.
Yes, please.
I'm having a hard time understanding the response on section 3.10.6, parentheses 6. The need for the variance is not the result of the applicant's own actions, and the response is that all proposed changes originated from the owner for the owner. What? I don't understand what that means.
So from speaking with the owner of the property, when I did the site visit, the way that the property was platted, and I believe he bought it from his stepfather, that the property dimensions have never changed, but this was platted before the 2001 adoption of the 2001 zoning and land regulations ordinance. So
I understand.
It would make the property,
that answers my question. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Okay. Thank you, sir. As the applicant, it's got to be one of you four.
Last but not least.
Yes, sir.
Good evening, board members.
Yes.
Joshua, Denny. Brian O'Neill, 2484 Marina Road, Wadmalaw.
Please tell us why we should approve your application, sir.
I'm also an owner of a non-conforming property. Didn't know it. We just wanted to build a garage like our neighbors and sheds. And the zoning change makes it impossible. I have to ask for a variance to be able to locate a garage and to put a back porch. The house is already non-conforming. We didn't build the house. I bought it that way. We just like to have a garage. We're living with half of our stuff in a container in our yard. This property was, all of these properties on this road, a lot of people on Wadmalaw don't even know about it. It's referred to as Botany Bay. It was made in 1963. There's no revisions at the county for plats or anything. This place was originally cut up in these small lots for RV occupants for once was the intercoastal marina for Wadmalaw. That has since changed. Before 2001, all of my neighbors all built houses, sheds, garage, structures, and 90% of them are pretty close to the line, much closer than what we're asking for, but that's our story. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
That's your story and you're sticking to it, right?
I wish I could tell you differently, but that's it.
How far off of the setback are you? What to propose?
The proposal, the porch would be 2.9 feet, and the garage would be 7.7 feet.
Yeah, right there.
You can't get a lawnmower between that, can you?
Man, you can't.
I don't have a back porch at all now, sir. Nothing. I'm waiting on this to even have a porch.
Okay. All right, Mr.
These are
Newell.
my contractors. They'd be happy to answer any technical questions. I'll do my best with it as well.
I got an easy question.
Yes, sir, Mr. Neal.
What's, maybe the site plan helped, how about the aerial? Is there anything behind them? What's behind them?
I do have signatures from my neighbor behind me. All three properties.
Can you pull up, Joshua?
All three neighbors that touch my property line have signed that with their tax map numbers and their addresses for approval.
Do you mind pulling up the aerial so I can see where because that's exactly where I was going. You're going to go so close.
I was getting there.
I appreciate you reading my mind. It's
We
a
also
short
have
story.
I also have some photographs
There
here
we
with
go.
me that show the neighboring properties and some of their structures.
Go, Mr. Downey, can you go back? Yeah, right there. That's all right. No, the aerial. There you go. So, based on this picture you're looking at, so the guy to the right, he's fine with it. The people behind you, I guess is there a structure on that property directly behind you?
That's a large tract of land, and his structure is down on the river.
Okay, so really the only impact to your neighbors would be, I don't know if that's south or north or which way, but they're fine with it? And
That would be north, correct.
And that's one of the people signed on this document here?
Yeah, in fact, the county approved his structure. You'll see there, it's 1 foot by 3 foot off of the line.
All right. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to go to see your neighbors, bring in a document like this that shows that they're not, because there's no opposition to it, but still, sometimes people don't know about it. They don't follow up. You took the time to take that, so that's a huge step in my book. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
Mr.
We
Chair,
didn't know
I'm fine.
anything about it. We went through the permitting process. Our permits are sitting, across the hall. And then we find out then we have to have a variance. Can't build this.
I'm fine, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else on that side? Anyone on this side with a question? Mr. Nelson?
Mr. O'Neill, I'm impressed that you didn't wear a shirt that says the Independent Republic of Wadmalaw Island or something similar.
I almost did.
But I would add that I do appreciate, and I think my fellow board members do, just the simple fact that you come here with a proposal on Wadmalaw without a outcry of opposition to the project is testimony that this one's pretty cut and dry, in my opinion.
I'm pleased as well. The last conversations I had with Jenny and Josh, I know this isn't the time to do it, but it came up in that conversation that this area needs to be visited because when they put the zoning plan, this zoning on this, it clearly states in the documentations that zoning is for 1 acre minimum lots. It's 0.3. And they've applied 1 acre zoning on every lot on this road, but a lot of people don't even know this little place exists on Wadmalaw. That was the first try of cutting up any little lots on Wadmalaw. That was obviously way before Melinda Kelly and the Planning Commission was out there, the Planning Committee.
What's zoning for? AGR.
Okay. Any more questions? Thank you so very much for your testimony, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Anyone else to speak in favor of this application? Anyone else in favor? Anyone, well, you guys are not speaking in opposition. Okay. Case is closed to the public. Any questions of staff? Any general discussion? Very good. I need a motion to approve or deny this particular application. Anybody want to take us? Anybody want to take us home? All right, Ms. Smalls?
I'll do it. In the matter of trying to get the case number, BZA, oh, it just disappeared off my screen, sorry. I'm pushing too many buttons. And, oh, there it is. Give me just a second to find my place. In the matter of BZA case 0624000795, I make a motion that we approve this case. One, I find that there are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to the particular piece of property. Number two, these conditions do not generally apply to other property in the vicinity. Number three, because of these conditions, the applications of this ordinance to the particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property. And number four, the authorization of a variance will not be of substantial detriment to adjacent property or to the public good, and the character of the zoning district will not be harmed by the granting of the variance. Number five, the Board of Zoning Appeals shall not grant a variance, the effect of which would be to allow the establishment of a use not otherwise permitted in the zoning district, to extend physically a non-conforming use of land, or to change the zoning district boundaries shown on the official zoning map. And number six, the need for the variance is not the result of the applicant's own actions. And number seven, granting of the variance does not substantially conflict with the comprehensive plan or the purpose of the ordinance. And in addition, I think there's one staff recommendation here also. There's none? Okay. That's it.
Okay, so we do have a second. Mr. Sedell? Any comments?
Can we just confirm that was for 796 and not 795?
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for that point of clarity. All right, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That carries. Congratulations, your application has been approved. Within 10 days, you'll be getting information from staff, letting you know the next steps and the process. Thank you so very much.
There was one small correction. It is not in the town of Rockville. That's right. I thought you said it was. Thank you.
Thank you.
For your patience tonight.
Yes. All right.
So we definitely only have 4 next month because the notices already went out since it's, what, 2 weeks away? So we are starting at 5. There's a planning commission meeting in here before that. Regarding October, we only have 5 new ones, so it's possible I can get those other 2 deferrals onto that one. If not, then November, though. 2 you defer to. Which, if I'm understanding correctly, for the first one, you just really want the site plan. Yeah. Which I asked many times, why are you taking this tree down? It's not showing, you can't tell when you look at the site plan why you need to take that tree down. Anyway. And the other one, she was going to provide some documentation. So I think it's doable for them to come to October. So. Yeah, because we have 5 cases for October, so that would be 2 old and 5 new. Yay! Go to the next slide. And then I think we just have Miss Smalls and Mr. Jordan was going to watch the class, the NIMBY class, so on YouTube. That's it.
All right. Well, thank you once again, staff, for an amazing job as always. Means adjourned. Thank you, guys. Great job.
Costa Rica.
8:17.
Great.
Sorry I couldn't get us out of here by 8.